is Hugs, Bruce Hilda, Rebel Shell, Rock Lobster, Dicks and Stones of the DC Roller Girls, and you're listening to SLZE Sports.
The most amazing, sensational, dramatic, heart-rending, exciting, thrilling finish in the history of college football. You believe in miracles? Yes! Down goes Frazier! Down goes Frazier!
Live from the basement capital of the world, it's SLZE Sports.
It's one of those things that sucks you down into this giant tornado of awesome, bringing you the sleaze to the stellar and everything in between.
Go crazy, folks! Go crazy! It's a home run!
With your hosts, Coach Scott, Zoe, DNash, and Sweet Lou.
I don't believe what I just saw! I don't believe what I just saw!
It's time to tear apart the sports world and...
And welcome to SLZE Sports, everybody. Thank you for joining us once again. I am Coach Scotty, here with Sweet Lou and D to the Nash. What's up, fellas?
What it do? Outside of the slap hurt around the world, I guess not much. Well, I mean, I think there's a war still going on, kinda.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
That Americans care about when they need to.
Yeah. And Final Four's coming up for both men and women's basketball. So that too.
But anyways, let's get to some headlines. What do you think? I know we went on just a little late tonight, but thank you for joining us, everybody, as you always do, and welcoming us into your, home, work, computer, wherever you're watching us from. We appreciate it.
Car, bathroom. Hey.
Whatever you do to kill time. We're not picky. Yeah, I did want to talk about the tournaments real quick, obviously, because we've hit the Final Four in both the men's and women's brackets at this point. Obviously the men's bracket got a little bonkers, as we know, especially on the left side of everybody's bracket for the most part. But that's a game we're going to get to pick, too, as said by SLZE Sports, the best rivalry in all of sports will be playing in the Final Four when Duke and North Carolina clash, the 2 seed and the 8 seed. So that is on the second, which, like I said, we will be picking that one for Saturday. And on the other side, you have Villanova, who ended up moving on and knocking off Houston, who had looked really strong. And Houston was the team that knocked out Arizona beforehand. And Villanova knocked them off in a low-scoring matchup. 50-44 to reach the Final Four. And on the other side, Kansas knocked off Miami, who also had a heck of a run, did the Hurricanes. But they fell to Kansas. And, I got to give you guys credit at least. You both had Kansas in your championship game. I mean, all our champions have been dead for like half a week, if not a week now, or longer if your name's Lou. But, are you guys looking forward to seeing Duke?
Did they lose too?
Huh?
Peters is my champion? Is that where I am?
Yeah, St. Peter's is your champion, yeah. You would have been better off, that's for sure. But, no, I mean,
it was amazing, because I think I read that in the Elite Eight, you had the highest total seed count. If you added up the seed number in the Elite Eight that we'd ever seen in history.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
And then you end up with two seeds and 1 seed, and, North Carolina, who's been to more Final Fours than any school in the history of college basketball.
Well, it was
how you went from one extreme to just blue blood central.
I mean, it was kind of like with the women's tournament, which I'm going to talk about in just a minute too, because I'm going to bring up the Final Four there. But kind of the same thing you see there, where we saw a couple schools there like Creighton and whatnot have big runs to then see basically almost all ones in the final. I guess my one question, obviously, I know we're going to pick this game in a little bit. I don't want to give away too much about how everyone's going to pick, but are we excited to see one last Final Four with Coach K going against North Carolina and this being in the Final Four?
I'll let the ACC guy go first.
Well, I mean, it's that's the other amazing thing. He's been involved with some ridiculous number of North Carolina Duke games in his 42-year career, and as I'm sure everyone's heard in the last 2 days, they've never met in the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So this will be the first time those two schools have ever met in the greatest rivalry in sports. Yeah, I mean, it's almost like someone scripted it, huh?
Is that the route we're going to take, Lou? Because
the conspiracy theory, sure, I like that. We all like a good conspiracy. I mean, I'm just appealing to coaches, his group of the audience. That it's not college football season. We don't have the CFP to conspire about. Can I conspire about how? I mean, the fact that like Gonzaga got knocked out right before they had to play Duke, and that all these other number one seeds were knocked out, and somehow we got Duke Carolina.
I mean, do we want to go through the other conspiracy theories too of how St. Peter's wins on National Peacock Day, and how both the Hurricanes and the Cyclones are playing in the Windy City? Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of.
The best player on the court was McGusty.
Yeah, right. So it's if you want to be that guy, we can most definitely be that guy during this tournament. But it's kind of hard for me to go ahead and call it the best college rivalry. The best rivalry in college sports when it's the second best rivalry in the state behind North Carolina A&T and North Carolina Central. Let's be real here. But with that said, of course, there's nowhere in the where I could really realistically pop a squat on that rivalry. Of course, with me living in the state for 7 years, being friends with tons of people who are from that state, having to hear about the rivalry as long as I have in my lifetime. And then, of course, knowing the level of intensity that's within that rivalry for them to meet finally in Coach K's final run, what could be potentially his last game against a first-year coach in Hubert Davis, who has also played in this rivalry. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, the storylines are plenty.
The other funny thing about Hubert Davis is the only other time they ever came close to playing was they both made the Final Four, I think, in 1991.
Yeah.
And Hubert Davis was on that North Carolina team, and North Carolina lost to who? The Kansas Jayhawks, who were also in this Final Four.
Yeah.
No, it's amazing. And then collectively, the last thing I'll say about how blue blood this is these four teams have collectively made the Final Four like 22 times in this century. Mm-hmm. So in the last 21 seasons, these four teams are accounted for, if that's 84 Final Four participants, and these guys are basically accounted for a quarter of them.
Yeah.
Going over Carolina, Duke, and Kansas. So, I mean, we talked about royalty in college sports several over the years. These days, it doesn't get much more royal in college basketball than these four schools. And for as crazy as this tournament has been, having a team like St. Peter's light the world on fire, which I know we're going to talk about in a second, a team like Miami as a 10 seed, I mean, and for 25 minutes of that game was kicking the crap out of Kansas.
Yeah.
And then a light switch got flipped somewhere, and Kansas rolled them, went on like a 38-9 run or some craziness, and didn't even make it close after that. But Miami had them. I mean, they were playing very good ball. I mean, it was been an amazing tournament. Houston as a 5 seed played exceptionally well up until they played that slogfest. Wasn't it a slogfest with Villanova? And then credit to the Arkansas Razorbacks knocking off the overall number 1 seed in the Gonzaga Bulldogs.
Yeah.
So we could make some comments about the officiating in that game too, but
so
it's been a constant theme throughout the tournament.
Lou, as much as I know you love Coach K, did he at least make you laugh a little bit when his player ran into the ref and he jokingly was telling the ref that the ref gets a blocking call? I don't know if
I must have missed that one.
This player was going out of bounds, kind of trying to get the ball and whatnot, and a ref was in the way. So he kind of bowled over the ref, and then Coach K kind of walked over and started calling blocking, but with a smirk on his face. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again,
be playful now. Yeah.
Conspiracy theories abound about, I mean, you guys will be surprised in which way I'm going to pick that game because, the fix is in, clearly. I knew the fix was in was at the end of the Texas Tech game. Texas Tech gave them a very good game, but, all of a sudden Duke got like on fire. In fact, they didn't miss a basket for like the last 7.5 minutes of that game. Literally, they made every time the ball left a Duke player's hand, it went through the hoop. But with like under 30 seconds, when Texas Tech was down like 4 points, and they made a basket, they were still down 4. They trapped. It kind of looked like the guy might have actually gotten a clean steal. And Jim Nance yells from the table, "Aren't they going to call the foul?" And then the ref was a little delayed, and he called the foul. But Jim Nance was literally calling for the foul. Like, Jim Nance had the script in front of him. He knew what was supposed to happen, and he just was incredulous that the ref was delayed on calling the foul. Because, I mean, oh my gosh, if Texas Tech got the ball and made it, it might have only been a 2-point game, and they still would have had to foul, and they were still going to win. But, yeah, when Jim Nance actually, let the script out of his mouth and asked where the foul call was, that's when I knew the fix was really in. So, just to give you a little thing, Coach didn't put the Kansas Villanova game on here because I think he thinks we all would have picked Kansas, mostly based on the injury to a key Villanova player.
Well, no, you both
you may be getting 2 unanimous picks.
Lou, you both had Kansas in the final game.
Oh, is that why we didn't pick it?
Right.
I didn't realize that.
That's how I've gone with all these games. And Duke, North Carolina, none of us had either of those 2 teams in the Final Four. So that's why I stuck with that. I did the same thing last week and whatnot too. But yeah, obviously you alluded to it. St. Peter's, the Peacocks, obviously had the Cinderella run of Cinderella runs. They were the third 15 seed ever to make the Sweet 16 and the first 15 seed ever to make the Elite 8. And, what a run it was, obviously knocking off number 2 Kentucky and lose champion right off the bat. Murray State, who a lot of people like, they knocked them off in the second round. And then, yes, as Dee alluded to, on National Peacock Day, they took on Purdue. And what they do, they knocked off the number 3 seeded Boilermakers to make the Elite 8. I mean, what a run, Lou.
It was incredible. And I don't want to take anything away from what Shaheen Holloway did with those kids or, what they accomplished. But after watching what North Carolina did to them on Sunday, Matt Painter really can't be a good coach. Like, how do you have a week to prepare for? Like, it's one thing. Kentucky, runs up against something they don't know what they're getting themselves into. We've seen, like you said, the 10th time a 15 seed had beaten a 2 seed. And maybe Murray State, obviously isn't a national powerhouse. Mm-hmm. They also don't really know what they're getting themselves into, and they lose. But Matt Painter has a week. He's got 2 7-footers and like a 6'10" guy in his team. And he's got Jaden Ivey, who's going to be a top 10 pick at guard. I don't even understand how they don't crush St. Peter's, but that actually was the best game they played. That was incredible that they were able to, no sneaking up on anybody and still beat Purdue.
Still beat them, yeah. But, Lou, the script was written already, right? So,
somebody needed to. The conspiracy theory that you had to get Purdue out of the way so Carolina had a clear run, but Carolina did not have a clear run. They had to beat Baylor, the number 1 seed, and UCLA, last year's Final Four team. Mm-hmm. That was one of the best games played in the tournament. Was the Carolina UCLA game in the Sweet 16? That was an incredible basketball game. Played very high level. There's been several games in this tournament that have just been played at a very high level. But you got to give it to Shaheen Holloway. Unfortunately, it sounds like he's probably already about to take Seton Hall. Right. Which is, that's what happens. You're at a school like that who's literally never made the. I love that. I saw a meme and I wish I should have posted it on our page. Like, they've now won 3 tournament games, and there was a meme with all the Power 5 schools of which they've won more, or they've made it further. Like, all the Power 5 schools that never even been to the Elite 8. Mm-hmm. A school like Rutgers, who's been playing, college sports since the 1800s. Has never made it past the Sweet 16, and I don't remember the others. I'm not meaning to single out Rutgers, but that's the one that I remember from seeing the visual in the last couple of days. Like, it's an incredible run, and it would have been nice to see them even give Carolina a game, but I think Hubert knows what he's doing. He wasn't.
Yeah, there are a lot of people that questioned it, and a lot of Tar Heel fans that questioned it during the season, whether or not he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, they questioned it coming into the tournament, whether or not he knew what he was doing.
Final Four in your first season taking over is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah. absolutely amazing run, obviously, by the Peacocks. Did want to bring up, like I said, we don't talk about often enough, but the women's bracket also, of course, how they matched it all up for this year's March Madness. The women's bracket, which we did see some craziness early on in that too, maybe a little more craziness early on than normal. Like the 10 seed South Dakota making the Sweet 16. The Creighton Blue Jays making the Elite Eight was a big one when they knocked off Iowa State in the 16. In the other bracket, you at least had Ohio State, the 6 seed, knock off the 3 seed in LSU. You had Princeton, who at least won against Kentucky, which was a huge. Oh, they beat Princeton too, right? Oh, sorry. I mean, they lost to Indiana. Yeah, Princeton, the 11 seed, knocked off Kentucky in the first round, which was a huge upset. Also, UCF knocking off Florida. I mean, I know it was 7-10. They were the 7, but it was still a big win for the Knights. Who
there was a couple 12-5s, like the Florida Gulf Coast.
Yeah,
pulled a 5-12. I don't remember who the 5 was, but they were a 12 seed that beat a 5. No, a lot more than you see in
Belmont
tournament.
was the other one. Belmont beat Oregon. That was the other 12-5. FGCU beat Virginia Tech in that first round.
Tech, that was who it was. Yep.
But yeah, and then, so you saw some craziness, but, as we've said before, the women's bracket kind of smooths down as it gets to the Final Four. And not only that, not only do you have 3 1 seeds and a 2, the 2 beat the 1 seed to get into it. The UConn Huskies, who are playing out of their
double overtime.
Right. Mm-hmm. In a crazy double overtime game, but the UConn Huskies, who have been playing out of their mind the last half of the season into this tournament, knocked off number 1 seeded NC State in the Bridgeport Regional to move in. But outside of that, Stanford won the Spokane, South Carolina the 1 won the Greensboro, and Louisville the 1 won the Wichita. So once again, you have 3 1s and a 2. That's pretty normal when it comes to the women's bracket, but it'll be very interesting to see how their Final Four plays out in Minneapolis, and we will be picking those as well.
Yeah, I mean, as an outsider looking in, I don't necessarily follow women's college basketball intently, but correct me if my thought process is wrong. I truly believe there's like maybe 6 to 8 women's teams that are strong, with 6 of those being elite. And then there's like a kind of a drop off on that second tier where all of them kind of compete well. And then it's that third tier of everyone else where we always end up getting probably like the same 6 to 8 teams in the Final Four every year. With that being said, this is UConn's 14th straight year making the Final Four at least, or is it their 14th straight? Yeah.
Yeah, it was their 16th. It was their 16th straight Elite Eight, and it was their 14th straight Final Four.
Yeah, so I mean it just seems that the talent in collegiate women's basketball just seems to go to the same 8 programs: UConn, Stanford, and at one point in time it was Tennessee. Now it's South Carolina. So it's always the same.
It's been South Carolina for a bit now, D.
Yeah, since Dawn Staley took over down there.
Yeah, since Dawn Staley took over, most definitely. Yeah.
But yeah,
like Notre Dame has been in that elite level for a while.
Yeah.
And look, there's nothing wrong with 3 1s and a 2. Let me straighten that up. It's fine with me. The best win.
And
the best
it was almost 4 1s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I mean,
not to be conspiracy theorists, but the NC State got not just the refereeing, but how does NC State as the 1 seed have to play in Bridgeport, Connecticut? Like, how does Connecticut get put in the Connecticut region
bracket?
As 2 seed? Like, that doesn't really seem fair to NC State that they basically had to play a Connecticut home game.
South Carolina had to play in Greensboro. They can't like them much in Greensboro, right?
But what? Columbia is maybe 4 hours away. It is a drive. It's not a bad drive.
I'm not saying it's not a drive, but
that's a home game.
Yeah, but even with them being in the Greensboro region, they still played their first few rounds at home. So they still had that advancement. And then
they had to beat North Carolina in Greensboro. So there was that.
Yeah, okay, I'll give you that. But that might have been a 50-50 situation though.
But
you have an hour drive for the people driving from Chapel Hill and then like a
Also,
4-hour drive from.
what was Carolina, like the 8 seed?
5.
Yeah.
They were 5 in the women's bracket? Okay.
But, obviously, congratulations to the 4. We'll be picking those games in just a little bit as well. Did want to bring up, we mentioned this kind of on the show on Thursday as we were talking. The USA men's team had a big game in Mexico that night, which they ended in a tie, 0-0. But for the purposes of playing in Mexico and needing some sort of points, that worked. It got them at least a point away in Azteca, which is, always such a rival place for them to play. And then they were able to pick up a huge win just 2 nights later at home in the USA against, that was Panama, correct?
Yep,
and they won 5-1. And Christian Pulisic, obviously the star of the team, had 3 goals, 2 of them on penalty kicks, to lead the team to a huge win, which literally has them on the brink. Tomorrow they play Costa Rica at Costa Rica, which is not an easy place to play, especially Costa Rica is just on the outside looking in of the automatic bids. So they're going to play them tough. The only thing they got going for them right now is even losing them, that the goal differential is definitely in the USA's favor right now. But if the USA could even pull off a tie tomorrow night, I think that cinches it up for them, and they will make the World Cup final in Qatar. So they're right there. Go USA. I want to see them back in the Cup after missing it 4 years ago. Definitely more exciting when you have someone to root for. Plus, I want to see Pulisic in the finals. I think he's such an exciting player, and one of the most exciting players we've had in a long time for the U.S., and we haven't seen him on that full stage quite yet. I mean, he's amazing in Europe. For the European teams he plays for, he scores. He plays. He's one of the better players out there. So to see him leading this U.S. team could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been an arduous journey, and I mean, it would have been nice to even to have clinched it the other night, but Costa Rica pulled off a 1-0 victory to keep their hopes alive. But it's all but clinched, because even if we lose, because we're so far ahead of them on goal, they would literally not only have to beat the U.S., they would have to beat the whole U.S. by 6 goals.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a big differential, but
yeah,
still.
It's literally 6. So as long as, we lost 2-1, we'd be fine. And they would actually end up finishing 4th. And even the 4th place team in our group gets to go to a play-in game, basically
right, they have a
play-in game
chance.
for the. But hopefully we, don't lose by 6 goals. And I assume it's going to be a defensive strategy. It'll be probably very much like the Mexico game. We'll be playing for the draw, or even just to lose 1-0.
Right. Well,
tomorrow night, Coach, right?
Tomorrow night
at 9 o'clock. I think.
Tomorrow night, yes, sir. So it'll be exciting just because I want to see them finally get back in and all. Did want to mention a couple things with the NFLs and rules. I know I texted you guys about this and we didn't get into it much, but we have complained about the Rooney Rule enough times on this show. This is they've kind of stretched it even more to a point when I kind of want to know your feelings. Basically, the NFL has announced that all teams must add a minority offensive coach to their team. How do you feel about that?
Well, I find it interesting that it's an offensive coach. I mean, I get it. A lot of the recent head coach hires have been offensive coaches, but it's not like there haven't been talented black offensive coaches in the league already that they've seemed to bypass year in and year out. With that said, okay, now you're mandating this thing for teams to do, and I think that the thing that I have the biggest issue with is this collective pot that the teams have to come in together so that the hiring money comes from, which my guess is, or my assumption is, that everyone will be paid the same flat fee, which means someone may end up taking less pay just so they can get an opportunity to be an assistant in the NFL. I don't know if I'm necessarily a big fan of that. But we'll see exactly how this thing works out. Now everyone's going to get an equal opportunity to come in and at least be an assistant I don't know if this necessarily is going to be the thing to make it work where we get more minority head coaches. But, I won't hold my breath either to see if this works, but we'll see. I won't complain about it too tough until the first couple of years are in the books.
Well, of course, the other rule that was talked about, and, obviously a lot during the season, but more in the postseason, and the NFL has announced a change to the rules for the postseason. This year in the overtime, that both teams will get a chance to have the ball in overtime. Sure, I agree with it, obviously. I've always said that I like the college rule of overtime better than anything the pros have ever done. So I obviously think this doesn't go far enough, but I guess it's positive that both teams at least get the ball. But
recency bias, what led to this. It's going to be interesting because I still believe that the thing, it's going to be great that both teams get the ball, but after that, then defenses are going to have to play.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing that they probably should have done for the first 60 minutes is something that they're going to finally have to do, even if it comes down to that final drive after both teams score.
And then it comes down to kick a field goal.
That or someone to go for two, whoever has the second possession.
Yeah, and it might, if both offenses are playing that well, like we saw with KC Buffalo or something like that, you might see that happen.
Yeah, that would be my thing. Hey, either go for broke or don't.
Honestly, you figure if that game happened and Casey scores and say they just kicked the extra point, you think Buffalo would have just gone for two?
I think they have
probably.
to. If KC scored as easy as they did, I think they have to. Because your thought's got to be, well, they just drove that on us. There's a good chance they do that again, and all they need is a field goal. Let's go for two to win it.
Do I dare put my defense out there on the field, stop them for 60-plus minutes?
Right. Well, in that game, the funny thing was they actually stopped him for about the first 38 minutes, and then all of a sudden, boom, they couldn't stop him for about 17 minutes.
Yeah. So now we got to hope that they finally stop him now. I don't know if I want to take that chance. I think I'd go for two.
Yeah, I think you'll see a lot more going for two.
Yeah.
And speaking of
then the real question is, do you almost not want the ball first?
That's the thing, right? Do you want to have the pressure of scoring second? Or do you want to go ahead and put the pressure on the team to have to score second?
I almost wonder on the coin flip, do you defer?
Yeah,
because,
it's a strategy.
In college, you always want the ball second, right? Doesn't everybody always
yes,
second?
You always want the ball second in college. I think the difference here, though, is you still have to drive. So, it
depends on the tenor of the game. But in that game, the way that game was going, do you almost ask the ball second?
Very possible. It's definitely would be talked about, and you could see the first deferral you've ever seen in overtime before. But anyway, so that'll happen.
Oh yeah, I will most definitely defer and then go for two in that situation.
But so that'll
both defenses look. Yeah.
That'll happen in the playoffs for this year. Also, a team that's been talked about possibly moving and mentioning the Buffalo Bills there. The Buffalo Bills actually have struck a new stadium deal in Buffalo to keep them in Buffalo. It's going to remain an open air as well, so don't think the Bills are going to let the weather bug them. They announced a 30-year deal for a new $1.4 billion stadium in Orchard Park. The groundbreaking, that is, they're not going to bake the ground, is scheduled to start next spring. They're going to aim for a 2026 completion, and it's going to have 62,000 seats in the open-air stadium.
The key number you did not mention was that $850 million of that money is going to be publicly financed by the residents of 600 million by the residents of the entire state of New York, and like 250 by the county, or maybe it was 650 and 200. The county's taking on a chunk, but and I think that does break a record for the largest public financing portion of a stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Probably because But with a state and municipality.
Are you surprised?
Wow. Did Vegas was all privately financed, right?
I believe so. I'd have to look that up though.
And was the one in LA privately financed, or?
I don't know.
Well, that I don't remember. But in that situation, though, you're talking about a stadium that holds the only 2 teams in the state.
Correct. The only football that they play in the state of New York. The other. I'm not being a jerk.
I didn't even think about it like that. I was more so talking about the Rams and Chargers. I didn't even think about the Bills in that manner. Yeah. You got me, Lou.
Bills is New York's only football team.
Yeah, the only football team. Yeah, you got me there, Lou.
There's 2 teams. There's 2 New Jersey teams that somehow claim New York State as their home, but those are both New Jersey's teams.
Close enough.
Yeah.
I'm trying to look up this for the $1.9 billion stadium that is Allegiant Stadium.
I can see Vegas definitely being privately funded because they got money in Vegas coming out their nose.
Privately funded. There's no, certain bosses out there that would help fund that.
Sure. But what about what is the one we just had the Super Bowl in LA?
Allegiant. Right?
No, the Allegiant's in Vegas.
Allegiant is Vegas.
Well, that's right. Allegiant is Vegas. SoFi.
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 No, SoFi's is San Francisco. Oh no.
No, SoFi's in LA.
Which one's San
Francisco? Pretty sure SoFi's the one we just had the.
Yeah, we did. I'm just
Levi,
right? All these new stadiums.
It's the Niners.
Yeah, right. The one that has denim going around the whole stadium.
Does?
No, but it's Levi Stadium. Anyways, man.
Hey, man, I don't put anything past anybody.
I read something because I was looking this up because some patriotic person was, who lives in New York that I'm friends with, was complaining about the money. And I actually looked it up. Did you know this city of Boston is the only city that doesn't have any publicly financed, Fenway Park was built 900 years ago. So that is owned by the people that own the Red Sox. The Bruins actually own TD Gardens and rent it to the Celtics, but it is privately owned. It was built by the corporation that owns the Bruins.
Yeah.
And
Fenway probably cost Fenway probably cost what, a C note when it was built.
Foxborough with his own money and private funding.
So anyways, also want to mention Albert Pujols signs a 1-year deal going back to one of the teams we'll talk about tonight. It's the St. Louis Cardinals for one final run, he said, with the Cards. Should be fun to see him back in St. Louis, though, even if it's not all the time.
Thankful for the DH, huh?
Absolutely. Also, finally big news. I know they've been trying to work towards it in the WWE, and been trying to convince one Scott Steiner to do it because Scott has been very hesitant on anything with the WWE as of late. But I guess it finally happened, and they got him to agree, and the Steiner brothers will be entering the WWE Hall of Fame.
Well, I mean, it just happens to be very coincidental that, of course, the younger Steiner, a.k.a. Braun Breaker, is an emerging star in the company now. So why not?
Well, I mean, they've tried to get the Steiners in the past, though, and Scott's always the one that wants nothing to do with it.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Now that, the timing just happens to be very coincidental. I'm not saying that the timing is coincidental for the WWE.
Right.
I'm thinking the timing is more so coincidental to the Steiner family.
For Uncle Scott?
Yeah. But, the big booty daddy is the showstopper, and the show doesn't stop until the top is on top and people let them know who's your daddy. If you hear me.
I just really hope in their I want him to do some big percentage numbers thing in the Hall of Fame speech.
I just watched that clip before the show started. Lou, I'm going to have to send you the link to see Scott Steiner math.
I just love the fact that it said if you pay attention, the math actually works out. That's the crazy part.
No, because mathematically, when you add the percentages up, they add up correctly. Yeah,
but it's just insane because it sounds like he's just spouting. The only other thing I wanted to mention before we moved on, I mentioned to you guys about who's probably going to be the top pick in the MLB draft one of these years. I'm not sure if he's a junior or senior or not yet, but Ben Joyce, the pitcher for the Tennessee Volunteers, who told you he's consistently hitting over 100 on the guns and whatnot, and making a lot of teams look silly early on. Well, let me give you some context here. In all of Major League Baseball, the fastest pitch last season was 103.4 miles per hour. Major League Baseball. Mr. Ben Joyce, or I should say young Ben Joyce, just last week threw a pitch 104.1 miles per hour. 104.1 mile an hour fastball.
That's insane.
Bigger, stronger, and much faster.
Yeah, and so obviously he's going to be picked bright and early, but nice little update on him because I've mentioned it. So he's not always about my Knowles when it comes to baseball, though they thankfully are ranked in the top 5 right now. Anyways, anything else you guys got before we move on?
Lou, do you want to bring the news about golf, or should I?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can bring it. I forgot about that. I've been watching this today, but I don't know.
There's been a sighting. There's been a sighting. There's been a tiger sighting.
Well, there were sightings all weekend, or for the past week. Well, first one Eldrick Tiger Woods' caddy had flown to Florida, and then that he was seen out on his home course, which is called Medalist, actually playing without a cart. Because he played in that tournament in December with his kid, but they were allowed to use carts because that was more of kind of a PR type tournament. It's not a professional tournament. But yeah, his private plane landed in Augusta this morning, and he's apparently playing some practice rounds with Charlie. Brought his kid and Justin Thomas to play a little, which is not uncommon, for the pros to fly in this week. Where we are 9 days away from the kickoff. We are merely a week from coming Monday. The practice rounds will start on Monday. The official practice rounds start Monday, but for high-level professionals like a Justin Thomas, the Augusta members let them come in early to get the feel for the course.
I mean, what our tiebreaker will be next week.
Yes, but my opinion is, and I was talking to my buddy who's been there many times because he goes there for work every year, is, and I'm lucky enough to have been there twice for practice rounds. Walking, there's not too many probably courses out there on the tour that are as challenging to walk as Augusta. The elevation changes at Augusta are extreme, to say the least.
Wow.
From like the second hole is way downhill. The 10th hole is way downhill. Then you kind of play down in more of a valley area for several holes. And then like 8 and 9, you come up a hill. Like that would be the hardest. Remember, the hardest part for him now is probably not swinging the club. It's walking 18 holes 4 days in a row. That was what I would expect with his injuries to his leg. That is going to be the most challenging. So I joked with my buddy who were texting back and forth about it today, was that I think he went less today to see if he could hit the ball around Augusta as to see if he could walk Augusta.
Walk it, yeah.
And see how walk it for one day and then see how he felt, tomorrow morning. And if he feels like crap, I think he has till Friday. He has to make a decision by Friday whether he's in or out, so that they can because right now, they've been talking for 2 weeks that he was still on the list. He was on the official list as an entrant, which he because he has a lifetime exemption as a past champion, the way the Augusta rules work about who gets in the Masters and who doesn't. So to make a room for somebody else, I think part of their rules are players have to let them know by the Friday before the tournament whether or not they're going to play. So clearly this was a tryout, but again, I think the tryout was more about walking the course than it was hitting the ball, because he can hit the ball at home.
They watching.
But no, it's also interesting too, because Tiger's always made a comment over the years that he never enters a tournament that doesn't think he has a chance to win. But you really got to think, if this is the first time he's played golf in 15, 16 months competitively, I think he's there more for the experience than a chance to win. But who knows? He has to show up anyway. He would, as a former champion, show up anyways. Next Tuesday is when they have the Champions Dinner, which is a big deal in the world of professional golfers. You have to have won that tournament to show up to that dinner, so it's a pretty exclusive club. So
there you go.
But that's big news.
Absolutely. the sighting. We are SLZE Sports, SLZE Sports.com. Likes on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at SLZE Sports every Tuesday night, 9 p.m. right here on Facebook Live. Very shortly, we'll be going to the MLB Central preview. But before we get there,
Holler if you hear me.
it's time for the Sleaze of the Week.
Got to put that freak on the leash, right, Coach?
I was gonna say, Coach, that was a new one. I liked it.
That was Scott Steiner.
Put that freak on the leash.
We only had a couple come across this week. Coach posted one about so Carolina Panthers 2021 sixth-round pick Shi Smith, a former standout wide receiver at South Carolina, was arrested this weekend. Shi here arrested on charges unlawfully carrying a handgun, drug possession, and speeding. He was stopped driving 86 on a 55. They noticed the smell of marijuana coming from his car, searched it, and found the gun. All right. It's like the trifecta. Drug speeding, and gun possession.
So where was he speeding? Was he speeding in Charlotte?
Where is the news from?
Because that seems to be a thing.
Speeding in Charlotte?
Yeah. Got Bobby Fields.
U.S. Highway 176. Do you know where U.S. Highway 176 is?
I might. Not on the top of my head.
Yeah, it does not. The funny thing is, there's not a.
Yes, I do know 176 because it runs through my third home of Summerville, South Carolina. So that's why I do know it. So yeah, it's in South Carolina region. Yeah.
All right. Well, proving that we actually do care about what's going on, Crane, Coach. Our second Sleaze nomination actually comes from the situation. So I'm sure a lot of people that follow English Premier Soccer, which there is a good portion of folks in the U.S. that get up every Saturday morning and watch the Premier League soccer games. The owner of Chelsea is one of these Russian oligarchs. His name is Roman Abramovich. When the war broke out, he announced that he was selling his share he announced that he was turning the control of Chelsea over to his charitable organization would then be administering and then he was the team would take over control of the team, and that he would be looking for a buyer for Chelsea. But he has come down on the side opposite Vladimir Putin in the war with the Ukraine. Even though he is Russian, I think he also has some Ukrainian ties. Well, he's also been trying to get involved with the peace talks, or at least the I don't know if they're called peace talks, but basically the talks between Ukraine and Russia, trying to de-escalate the war. And he and two others that were involved in these talks, well, they were poisoned, because that's what the Russians do. The Russians poison people they don't like. So, yeah, Chelsea owner Roman Abramovich and multiple Ukrainian peace negotiators are suffering symptoms of suspected poisoning after a meeting in Kiev earlier this month that included I thought I had the symptoms, because it was awful. It was like, tearing of the eyes and peeling skin on their face.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But as we know, the Russians have been, and Putin have been poisoning people they don't like for years.
Oh yeah, for years.
So yeah. So the owner of Chelsea has been poisoned because he was trying to bring peace to the world. And that's all I got for you.
Well, do we really want to name Russia the sleaze?
Are we afraid of escalating the war? Nobody wants to escalate this war.
No, I don't want to escalate the war. I'm not worried about that. I'm more so concerned about being poisoned.
Oh. It's not like we're going there. We're just going to stick it in a box,
though, it's not the first time we've named Putin. I'm pretty sure he's been a sleaze.
Oh, wow.
What, do we put a return address on it? Because I don't want any mysterious food on there.
No, I think it's clean, a plain brown box.
Gotcha.
No return address. If it doesn't end up there, then, that's just lost to the ages.
Yeah.
Right? That bobblehead gets lost to the ages, Coach, if it doesn't come back.
Exactly. There's no explosives in it at all. I don't know what you're talking about.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
What? I don't know what you're talking about.
Wow. Neither do I.
Nope. I have no idea what you're talking about. Anyways.
But he gets it, though, but I don't know what you're talking about.
Good old Putin, I think, gets a second. I'm pretty sure.
I think it is, too.
I almost would have said the first one was soccer related, wasn't it?
Sounds slightly familiar.
Or was it Olympic related?
Oh, no, it was Olympic related because it's when they were hosting.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good time.
Baseball.
All
Are we
right.
doing baseball first or picks first, Coach?
No, baseball, just like we did last week.
We're talking baseball.
Anyways, yeah, so we're going to talk about the baseball MLB Central Divisions this week, as I'm trying to get a graphic up, but it's okay. Obviously with the American League Central was not the absolute strongest last year overall, but we will start off like we did in the previous weeks with the team that won that division in the Chicago White Sox. The White Sox, they didn't do a ton to their team to improve. I mean, again, they went 93-69 last year in Tony La Russa's first year in his elder age with the Chicago White Sox. Another one of those possible people who could make loose little his what do we call it?
I don't really. Yeah, my Mount Hatemore.
Your Mount Hatemore.
Is that what we're calling it?
I think so.
I like that Mount Hatemore.
Mount Hatemore.
Mount Hatemore. The one day that we'll have a hot seat on Mount Hatemore. But yeah, anyways, so like I said, they didn't do a ton. I mean, they're solid overall. They did try to boost their pen. I know they brought in Kendall Graveman from Houston. And their rotation is already not bad. Lance Lynn obviously is the ace. Giolito, the number 2, is a solid guy too. Gold Glover, Dallas Keuchel is. Am I saying that wrong? I always say his name wrong.
Keuchel.
Quetchel.
Keuchel.
Anyways, so he's still there after they brought him in last season, but he's only like the number 4 guy. They got the youngster Kopech, who's the 25-year-old who's supposed to be in there in the next position in the 5 spot. But obviously Hendricks is a great closer, still there doing his thing. They brought in Josh Harrison from Oakland to play second. But overall, I mean, again, you look at the youth of this team and overall and how ready they seem to be after what we saw last year. You have Luis, is it Robert, the center fielder, only 24 years old and played, what was it, a half to 2/3 of the season last year, and he hit .338, 13 home runs. So a lot of people like him a lot. Tim Anderson, the shortstop, also hit .309, had 61 RBIs. Again, it'll be interesting to see how these teams improve. But again, this is the only team that even finished over 500 in this division last year and won the division. Lou, you like the White Sox?
Yeah, sorry, I'm having a little problem with my audio. Yeah, obviously, like you said, the only team over 500, and you could probably make an argument they may be the only team, who's really got a chance to compete with the other powerhouses in the American League. But it's such a nice mix of veterans and young guys in this lineup. You got a veteran like Abreu in the middle lineup, their catcher Grandal, Harrison they brought in at second. And then, such good young talent like Tim Anderson hit that dramatic home run in that Field of Dreams Classic last year. Roberts, Moncada, the third baseman.
And I forgot about Vaughn, who they're going to have as their DH. He's only 23. And he had 15 home runs last year.
Yeah. And I don't know, Jimenez, is it Eloy Jimenez? Mm-hmm. He also is an up-and-coming talent. So, yeah, it's just such a nice mix of youth and which they've done through lots of trades. About 2 or 3 years ago, they made a lot of trades to bring in a lot of this young talent, and a good pitching staff.
And that young up and coming manager.
Yeah, like the only thing not young about this team is Tony.
Manager, yeah.
I'm sure he's got good bench coaches.
Oh yeah.
So it's still clearly the only thing they really let go was Carlos Rodon. Rodon was a very good starting pitcher that went to the Giants. But other than that, you still got to feel like this is the class of the division.
Yeah, because then you get to the number 2 team from last year, and let's say it right now, the Cleveland Guardians taking the field this season. Obviously they're hoping Shane Bieber can return to form as the ace of this team. He went 7-4, 3.17 ERA. He just had injury issues. But as long as he's healthy, he's solid. The 26-year-old Aaron Saval is really good too. He went 12-5 last season. And then, again, another at least solid with Zach Plesac, Cal Quantrell, and Tristan McKenzie rounding out that rotation. Not bad overall there. Their pen didn't get a ton of help. They do have an extremely young, extremely good closer in Emmanuel is it? I always get it wrong. Clace?
I think it's Clace, yeah.
He's 23 years old, and last year he saved 24 games and held a 1.29 ERA. So if the Guardians, I feel like their rotation and their pitching staff, I feel, is very relative to the Chicago White Sox, which means overall, you're looking for a difference. I think you look at the hitting once again, and they do have pieces, but again, it's another team going through a bit of a youth movement along with some of the vets that they have there, because they also have the young kid they like at second, Andre Jimenez, who's only 23, Bobby Bradley at first, who's only 25. But you add it to some of the solid bats they have. They have Jose Ramirez at third base, who had 36 home runs and over 100 RBIs last year. You have DH Franmil Reyes, who had 30 home runs and 85 RBIs himself. Those two guys obviously are big bats. I know they like Ahmed Rosario, the shortstop, a lot too, especially as a solid bat. He hit over 280 last season. I'm just interested to see if this lineup can do enough to catch the White Sox.
Yeah, I kind of doubt it. I mean, in fact, I think they're going to be a pitched battle with the Tigers and Royals for the second half of this division, quite frankly. They might be a year or two away. They got some young talent, as you mentioned, Coach, but, that other than Bieber, I really don't like that staff at all. And, my thought is that the last team we're going to talk about has done the most to challenge the White Sox. And
they've done a ton
Cleveland,
of late.
Detroit, and Kansas City are probably going to battle for third place.
Well, let's move on, shall we, to the Detroit Tigers. Detroit, who went 77-85 in A.J. Hinch's first season at the helm. He's still there, entering his second season. You talk about doing something, though. They definitely made moves for their rotation. Whether you think they're good moves or not, that's a whole different discussion. They brought in the big lefty from Boston, Eduardo Rodriguez, to be their ace. But again, he's an ace who went 13-8 and had a 4.74 ERA last season. Then Scooball's still there. He's a 2. He wasn't that great either. Casey Mize, the 3. They brought in Michael Pineda from Minnesota as the 4. And I know they're having, like you usually see, young guys. I think they're looking right now at the 24-year-older Matt Manning to possibly their number 5 starter. Again, didn't do a whole lot to their pen either. They do have a solid closer who just didn't get enough opportunities last year either in Gregory Soto. But overall, again, you mentioned what else did this team do? They brought in a decent hitting third baseman. Oh, no, they already have him. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong spot. Heimer Candelario, who I was talking about, a switch hitter who's actually a very solid hitter for them. They still have Jonathan Shoup as well, who's been solid overall. He had 22 home runs, 84 RBIs last year. The big moves they made, they brought in shortstop Javier Baez from the Mets, who obviously had 31 home runs, 87 RBIs last season, so that's a big bat for Detroit. They brought in Tucker Barnhart, the catcher from Cincinnati, who's solid overall for a catcher. He's not gonna go nuts for anybody, but he's solid. Obviously, the big thing here is I think right now, if I'm not mistaken, Lou, obviously Miguel's still there, Cabrera's still there as DH, but I believe they're starting the plan is to start 2 rookies at the beginning of the season. In center field, Riley Green, the 21-year-old, and at first, Spencer Torkelson, the 22-year-old.
Yeah, I'm not sure about Green. I know that there's a battle for center field. But yeah, Torkelson, I think you definitely pencil in, and he's definitely on those top 10 rookie of the year candidates, Spencer Torkelson. So yeah, I think he's definitely going to start the season.
Right.
Starting at first base, and probably not too far into the season, Green will, as long as he performs well, will take over center. I had a slash literally him and this guy named Victor Reyes, but it'll probably be Riley Green, both young guys. So this is a nice team. They got a couple, obviously veteran like Miguel. He must be close to 40 now, right?
Upper 30s.
It's got to be like 38 maybe 39. Miguel Cabrera.
Again,
Javi Baez was a big pickup, as you mentioned. I think this is a team that could maybe turn things around. They got a little better last year, still under 500. I think they could challenge they're probably not going to finish much above 500 if they do, but I think they could challenge that 500 mark.
Miggy is 38, but I think he'll be 39 at the beginning of the season. So, yeah. He's a solid DH. DHH.
Professional hitter, we like to call that.
So then coming in fourth last season was the Kansas City Royals under Matt Metheny, who's going into his 3rd season as the manager there. Again, I don't think they have the strongest rotation, even though they did go out and bring Zach Greinke back to KC, talking about players going back to their old teams. Greinke, who spent many years at the beginning of his career in Kansas City playing for the Royals, heads back after being in Houston the last couple. Last year he went 11-6 at a 4.16 ERA. Obviously had to try to pick up some slack in Houston too, with Verlander being out and kind of having to step into that role. He doesn't have to be the ace here, but I guess right now they're pushing Brady Singer to still be the ace for this team, the young 25-year-old who struggled a bit last year, but has the makings of someone that can be really good. So they're trying to push him. But overall, outside of Greinke, a lot of youth. Carlos Hernandez, Chris Bubik, Brad Keller, the last two I mentioned, 24 and 26 years old themselves. So a lot of youth in the rotation. Scott Barlow is a solid closer, but again, it's someone who didn't get a whole lot of chances last year. And again, you look at their they have a great defense. They had a couple Gold Glovers on this team. Andrew Benintendi, the left fielder, who also had 73 RBIs and 17 home runs. More from Boston before he moved to KC, but had a solid year. And, of course, Michael Taylor, who people in Washington know well enough in center field, won himself a Gold Glove with KC last year. They obviously still have their silver slugging best catcher in this division, probably the best catcher hitting in all of baseball, in Salvador Perez, who hit 48 home runs and 121 RBIs last season. And I think that was coming back from the injury the year before, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So, obviously Perez still had it, won a silver slugger, and by far, just a huge slugger. Whit Merrifield is a solid bat for them, had 74 RBIs himself last year. Their second baseman hit 300, and Nicky Lopez, but again, I don't think he didn't play the whole season. I know they're hoping Carlos Santana can bounce back a bit at first. And another team starting a young rookie, most likely. I know they're looking for the third baseman, Bobby Witt Jr., the 21-year-old, to most likely be starting at third base when the season starts.
Yeah, I think it's almost positive that Bobby Witt Jr. is going to start at third base. And he is probably your number one candidate for Rookie of the Year in the American League. So, again, it's a little bit like the the White Sox, the lineup wise, I should say, has a very nice combination with some, guys hitting their primes, like Merrifield and Benintendi, veterans like Perez and Carlos Santana, and then young guys coming up like Witt, Adalberto and Mondesi, Nicky Lopez are starting to come up. Lineup wise, this is a great team. I think they could really do a lot. It's the pitching staff that really worries me. The bullpen I don't really seem like I know any of these guys, and outside of brink, I would worry about, even with, you talked about Brady Singer, but he's young, and the rest of that pitching staff. The reason I don't think they are going to be able to compete for the top of this division is the pitching staff, both starters and the bullpen. But this lineup is spectacular. You want to look for hidden gems in fantasy baseball, look up and down these hitters. They're going to put runs on the board. I just don't know if they're going to be able to stop anybody from scoring runs against them.
So then the final team that made, a lot of moves, as you mentioned, Lou, the Minnesota Twins, went 73-89 last year in Rocco Baldelli's third season as he enters his fourth at the helm in Minnesota. I mean, you can start with the rotation immediately. They brought in a new ace. They brought in Sonny Gray from Cincinnati, who didn't have the best of seasons. I know was out for a little bit of the season last year. Only went 7-9, had a 4.19 ERA, but obviously Sonny Gray was really good, and they're hoping that he just bounces back. Their youngster, Joe Ryan, they're looking to be the number 2. They brought in Dylan Bundy from the Angels to be their 3. After that, it's kind of a mix and match. I know Balil Ober, Griffin Jacks are the main guys they're looking at, but not quite sure exactly how they're going to finish out their rotation. And also they're turning over the full-time save position. Well, they might still be doing a bit of a change-up, but Taylor Rogers is supposed to be the main guy there, being the closer for them. But we'll see. Obviously, you were talking about the moves. The biggest one, which we brought up last week in the billion moves that were made, Carlos Correa from Houston. They gave him the big-time contract to come here, play shortstop. Obviously, Correa, 26 home runs, 92 RBIs last season, is a huge bat and a great player in the league right now. They also brought in Gary Sanchez from the Yankees to play catcher. Obviously, another solid bat, at least. They still have Sano being their DH, who has a lot of power. And Jorge Blanco had a huge year at second base, 33 home runs, 98 RBIs for him. And after playing a bit towards the end of last season, they're turning first base over to their 24-year-old youngster, Alex Kirilloff, at first. Can they compete?
Yeah, no, I think this is definitely your second-place team in the division. Correa really is the game changer here. Mm-hmm. But, don't discount picking up both Gary Sanchez and Gio Urshela from the Yankees. Those are both really nice pickups for this lineup. Like you said, Coach Kirilloff, the young guy who's going to start the season probably in the starting lineup. And, solid veterans like Buxton and Sano. And then Sonny Gray at the top of the rotation settles that down. They also just, I know he's hurt and probably won't see the field until maybe June, but very late signing was they just signed Chris Archer, mm-hmm. who's definitely been around for several years, mm-hmm. but they signed him, probably see him. I don't think you'll see him much before end of May, but I think this is a team that'll bounce back. I think Rocco had a really rough season last year. They had a lot of injuries, but they certainly tried to put things back in place. And my thought is that this is probably the second place team in the division.
Well, as we go for picking this, we rotated. D went first, Lou went second, so I'll go ahead and start this one off. And Lou, I'm actually going to surprise you here. I'm going to take the Minnesota Twins to go from worst to first in this division. I like what the Twins did. I think their rotation is improved. It does worry me a little, but I think their lineup can be really good. And they added a whole lot of pieces. And you know what? We can't always keep picking the same because there's no way we're going to be right. So I'm going to have the Minnesota Twins jump into one. I'm going to have the White Sox just falling back to 2, but I think those two are going to fight pretty hard, and very good chance that the loser between those two makes the playoffs as well, especially going into the extended playoffs now too. I have as the 3, I actually have Kansas City. You mentioned it, Lou. I think this lineup is really good. The pitching worries me, but if you're talking about maybe 1 or 2 teams finishing above 500 in this division this year, I think, the Royals might be right along that line, and it's based on the lineup. So I'm going to have them 3. I'm actually going to have Detroit going to number 4 because, I don't know, I don't like any of these other rotations, but I at least like the Baez signing for them, and they're doing a bit of a youth movement, which can be nice. But and in their first season as the Guardians, they fall to last place. D.
Seems like Coach just does not like teams that change their names, but I digress. I got a strange feeling. Lou and my first top 2 picks in this division will be the same. I'm going with the White Sox in first, the Twins in second. Going to go with the Guardians third, Detroit fourth, and the Royals fifth.
Lou.
Yeah, I think I am a combination of you two guys. 1 and 2, I am the same as D. I think the White Sox, as I said, are probably the class of the division, and there's a good chance they could win this division by 10 to 15 games. I'm going to go with the Twins to bounce back. They're going to go last to second. I literally did the third, fourth, and fifth 3 times. I crossed it out. But I actually, it's funny, I ended up going with the way you did, Coach. Because of that lineup, I like the Royals a lot, and I'm going to put them third. And I like the Tigers. I almost put the Tigers third. For some reason, I just think they're going to have a good year. And yes, I think the curse of a new name. I think there's finish last this season because of new names.
So what we all agree on is Detroit finishing 4th. All right.
Yes, we all agreed on Detroit finishing 4th. Other than that, we got a lot of things jumbled around.
And for the most part, I'll try to go a little quicker here. I know there's a couple good teams here, but I know I don't want to get too late. So moving to the NL Central, you start off with the division winner who lost in the NLDS to the World Series champion Atlanta Braves. The Milwaukee Brewers, who finished 95 and 67 last year in Craig Counsell's 7th season, as he enters his 8th this year. They didn't do much to their rotation, didn't really have to do too much of the rotation. Obviously, the National League Cy Young winner is the ace of this staff, Corbin Burns. Brandon Woodruff, solid number 2. Freddie Peralta, Adrian Hauser, Eric Lauer, finishing that out. Devin Williams, Brad Boxberger, among others in their pen. It's still a solid pen. Josh Hader, one of the best closers in baseball last season. Might as well be again. He had a 1.23 ERA and 34 saves last season, and he only blew 1 save. So that's pretty amazing for any closing pitcher. You look at this lineup. Yelich took a bit of a step back, but I think he was also hurt for a little bit, if I'm not mistaken. But Yelich still had 51 RBIs.
Yes, he
season.
was.
Right. So if he's back to form, obviously that's ridiculously huge bat. But let's see. Willie Adams stepped up for them a bit at short. He had 73 RBIs last year. They brought in from Boston Hunter Renfroe, who had 31 home runs and 96 RBIs to play right field. They brought Andrew McCutchen in from Philly to be their DH, because welcome to the DH in the National League. And McCutchen still had 27 home runs and 80 RBIs last year, though not a lot of people noticed. But yeah, and even Luis Urias at third is a solid bat. Colton Wong at second is a solid bat. I mean, this team's good, Lou.
Oh, this team's excellent. Again, I've talked like a broken record here. I feel like you got a team at the top of this division who is head and shoulders above everybody else, maybe even more so than it was in the AL Central. Another team that could win this division by 10 or 15 games. Well, I think they won. Oh, no, actually, because St. Louis had such a huge streak at the end of the season.
Yeah.
I mean, they were basically an under 500 team, and then they won like 25 out of 28 games to end the season and finished 90 and 72. But absent that, I don't know if anybody's really going to compete with Milwaukee. And to add something like a McCutchen this late in his career, This is just top to
DH.
bottom. I mean, you got a guy like Lorenzo Cain at the bottom of your lineup. It's just amazing. This is clearly the pitching staff, as Coach mentioned, with Woodruff and Peralta and Burns. Yeah, this is by far the class of this division.
So the number 2 team gets a new manager this year, and Oliver Marmol, who takes over the St. Louis Cardinals, who did lose in the wild card to the Dodgers last year after, as you said, going 90-72 last season. Jack Flaherty and Adam Wainwright at the top of this rotation both had really good years last year. Wainwright kind of a bounce back year from him after struggling a bit here and there, but he went 17-7 last year, 3.05 ERA and he's the number 2 guy in this rotation. They brought in Steven Matz from Toronto to be the number 3. Outside of that, everything else pretty much the same. Mikolas and Hudson still there, and whatnot. This team, though, I mean, you talk about defense, though, Lou. This team had 5 Gold Glovers on it. 5.
It's a Cardinal tradition.
Goldschmidt at first, 1-1, and also he hit 31 home runs and 99 RBIs, returning to form because Goldschmidt did have a bit of an off 2020 season. And people were worried because how good he was in Arizona and then kind of fell off, but definitely bounced right back last season. Tommy Edman, the second baseman, another Gold Glover, 56 RBIs last season. Of course, Nolan Arenado at third won a gold, also hit 34 home runs and 105 RBIs. In left field, you had Tyler O'Neill, who won a Gold Glove. He had 34 home runs and 80 RBIs as well. Harrison Bader won the other Gold Glove in center field. And of course, in his elder statehood, Yadier Molina is still there. They originally brought in Corey Dickerson from Toronto to hit DH. Obviously, with Pujols there, that might change things a little bit, unless Pujols just struggles and they don't let him hit.
I think you're going to see a platoon, actually, because I think they hit from opposite sides of the plate, so I would expect to see a platoon.
Yeah, Dickerson's a lefty, so you're right. You're absolutely right. But I mean, overall, it's a solid team. It worries me. I don't know why that they changed the manager, but
yeah, I don't quite understand why they fired that guy. He seemed to be doing a nice job, and to have that streak at the end of the season to get in the playoffs was amazing. Mm-hmm. But like I said, I mean, you got to be a little worried that Adam Wainwright, is like 72 years old, is your ace. But other than that, a lot of guys with a lot of major league experience. The bullpen is always, I feel like St. Louis is that team that never ends the season with the same closer that they start the season with. But again, a little bit like I feel like these two divisions are mirror images of each other. You had that team that's used to winning, is kind of a pretty solid second place team, kind of like the Twins in the AL. The Cardinals are I would say it's pretty safe to pencil them into the number 2 spot. But still, I just don't see that they have the pieces to compete with Milwaukee, but yeah. Then you got probably one thing in this division I would say is you probably have a clear last place team, and then you have 2 teams battling for 3rd and 4th.
So the 3rd place team from last season was the Cincinnati Reds. David Bell entering his 4th season with the Reds. They went 83-79 last season. Comparatively to the first 2 teams, as you mentioned, the pitching definitely falls off when you get to the next few teams. I do like Tyler Mahle, who had a decent year, or Mahle, but he's the number 2 guy. Luis Castillo is supposed to be the ace. Did not have a great season last year. They brought in Mike Minor from KC to be the 3. Gutierrez and San Merton is supposed to be their other guys right now. They did bring Hunter Strickland in among a couple others in their pen to try to help out there. But their closer is kind of a mess. I know that it might be a closer by committee, as you mentioned with some teams last week, Lou. But
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I know Lucas Sims is kind of mentioned as it, but he's not all that good. He had 7 saves last year, and it's definitely be a committee thing. And then you talk about the lineup. I mean, they have some pieces, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of questions, I think, when you talk about this lineup, because you talk about elder statesman, Joey Votto still kicking it in Cincinnati and still had 36 home runs and 99 RBIs last year. But
that's why he's still kicking.
Exactly. And second baseman, they had the Rookie of the Year, National League Rookie of the Year, and Jonathan India, who had 21 home runs and 69 RBIs himself. But again, that's kind of where the good bats nearly come to an end. I mean, Tyler Naquin was pretty good with 70 RBIs, but in right field, they're going to need more of him if they're going to try to actually compete in this division, along with Kyle Farmer at short. I mean, they still have Moustakas at third, and they brought in Tommy Pham from San Diego to play left, but I don't know, Lou.
Yeah, I was like, they let so much go away. They let Castellanos go to Philly. They let Winker go to Seattle. They let Sonny Gray go to Minnesota. Like, these are the stars of the team that, for a while last year, they were right up there. They were in second place. They were kind of battling with Milwaukee, and then they just dropped off in the second half. Mm-hmm. And then they let most of the, guys who were kicking butt leave. So, yeah, I really see a backtrack for this team this year. I know they still got Castillo, though I was trying to look up. I think Castillo might possibly be hurt to start the season. That's why I was looking this up to see what they had. Yeah, Castillo, expected to start the season on the 10-day injured list. Mike Minor also will begin the season on the injured list. So you already got two of their number 1 and number 3 guys are going to start the season on the injured list. Not a good way to start the season. So my thought is that this team is definitely not heading in a good direction.
Then in fourth last year, you had the Chicago Cubs under David Ross, who enters his third season. Kyle Hendricks, the ace, did not have a great year ERA-wise. He went 4.77 ERA, but he went 14-7 on the season. They brought in Marcus Stroman from the Mets to be the 2. They brought in Wade Miley from Cincinnati to be the 3. They brought in Drew Smyly from Atlanta to be the 5. They brought in basically their whole rotation outside of Hendricks. Plus, they also brought in a bunch of pieces in the pen. Michael Givens from Cincinnati, David Robertson, who was with Tampa Bay last season, and another closer by committee when they have Rowan Wick mentioned. But again, he had 5 saves last season. May not be the guy. You talk about a team that made a bunch of moves again. I mean, outside of the whole rotation basically changed up. They brought in Madrigal from the White Sox to play second. They brought in Jonathan Villar from the Mets to play third, and Drelton Simmons from Minnesota to play short. So a whole bunch of infield change-ups for them. Frank Schwindel is still there at first base for them, who hit 326 with 14 home runs, that is, last season. And obviously their big and Patrick Wisdom, who had 28 home runs, 61 RBI, seems to be hitting DH. But of course, their big move was signing their brand new right fielder, Seiya Suzuki, from Japan, who will be most likely starting in right field for them.
Yeah, it should be an interesting mix of a lineup here. Still, like, they got pieces in place with Contreras and Happ and Suzuki. Mm-hmm. I like that Patrick Wisdom. I know he's a little old for a guy just kind of making his way into the league. But then, you look at it, 5 years ago, this was an amazing staff with Stroman, Hendricks, Wade Miley, and Drew Smyly. Like, those guys they're all proven starters in the majors. Mm-hmm. Whether or not they still have it, I still think they're, probably better than a couple teams in this division.
And then the final team is the Pittsburgh Pirates in this division. Another team that made some moves, a lot in their rotation. Jose Quintana, they brought in from San Francisco, who didn't even play a whole lot last year. In fact, what he did, he went 0-3 with a 6.43 ERA. JT Brubaker still there, who was 5-13 last season, and is their number 2. Zach Thompson they brought in from Miami. Do I even want to mention much else for this Pirates team?
You don't have to. This might be one of the. You could argue that even with teams like the Diamondbacks and Rockies that we talked about last week, this could be one of the worst teams in the National League.
Though if you need some,
I would like to say there's nobody as bad as this in our National League East, as bad as those 3 teams. Those 3 teams will battle for supremacy of the cellar in the National League.
What I will say, though, is if you need some extra stats from a team that a lot of people ain't going for, Brian Reynolds in center field might give you some good stats.
They had a rookie last year, Brian Hayes, who third base, who got hurt a little bit. He might be coming along, but yeah, it's not a lot going on in Pittsburgh these days.
All right, D.
It's almost football season.
It's almost football season. But I'm going to go ahead and, of course, start out with the good land coming in first. The Cardinals second. The Cubs in third. Reds in fourth. And we are family in the basement.
We are family. Lou.
D copied off my paper. Same. Yeah, I mean, well, it's really like it almost writes itself. You know, the class of division. Cardinals are good, but probably not good enough. Pirates are the worst team in the division, so really it's just a decision between the Cubs and the Reds, and I just feel the Reds gave away too much in the offseason, so I'll give the Cubs the nod at 3, and the Reds 4.
I mean, I want to agree with you, but just right there is where I'll make the one decision at least, change up at least. I mean, the Brewers just seem too good to not be able to repeat. They need, I think, a lot to go wrong for that to not happen. The Cardinals, I think, can compete, but I don't know that they quite get all the way there. Again, with the expanded playoffs, I think they'll be right there. I'll put the I'm keeping exactly what happened last season because I have the Reds in 3, the Cubs in 4, and Pittsburgh in 5. So there you go. Which means next week we will be previewing the Major League Baseball East divisions. And with that being said, it is time for apparently no music to play. There you go. Lou brought you in.
So no music. All right. Not a problem. So, what I've decided to do was do a continuation because, as we already know, offense is king in the NFL, and in order to be king, you have to have a great signal caller on your squad. So, Lou kind of alluded that I should do this last week, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and do a continuation of our quarterback carousel this week. But what I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead and most definitely discuss the QB moves that have been made this offseason, grade them, and then potentially discuss if there are other moves that need to be made. But before we get there, I want to see if you guys agree with me with the current quarterback carousel situation. There are about 15 teams that I truly believe that their seats on this carousel are just about comfortable and that they're not going to lose their particular spots on this carousel. And I'm going to go down these QB names in alphabetical order of last names, starting with Josh Allen and Buffalo.
What about
These are guys that don't need to be moved or...
Well, the guys that we know will be entrenched as starters next year. And in most cases will probably end up being elite. So with Josh Allen in Chicago, with Buffalo, Joe Burrow in Cincinnati, Derek Carr in Vegas, Kirk Cousins in Minnesota with the new extension that he just got, Justin Fields in Chicago. Agreed that he's going to be the starter with no competition.
I don't think they picked up anybody else.
Yeah. Jared Goff because of that contract that he has. Justin Herbert in L.A., Lamar Jackson in Baltimore, Mac Jones in New England, Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville, Mahomes, Dak Prescott, Matthew Stafford, Brian Tannehill. That's the one I kind of question whether or not he has a comfortable seat. Do you guys?
Who else do they have?
Did they pick up anybody else even?
They really did. They didn't. No.
Okay. No, that's.
I thought I'd put that out there and ask, and then of course Zach Wilson with the Jets.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Again, I mean, I don't think they picked anybody else up to displace him.
All right. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and start with the teams. We'll talk about the teams that have actually made quarterback moves. And I want to know, I want to get your grade on some of these, on these moves. starting with the coach's Miami Dolphins with the addition of one Teddy Bridgewater. Do you have a grade? What are your thoughts on that pickup?
I mean, you know, I as a fan, I have no problem with it. I would grade it somewhere in the vicinity of a B, only because he wasn't brought in to be the starter. He knew it. They've already announced it. It wasn't a huge cap hit. They already let their backup from last season go in Jacoby Brissett, who's elsewhere now. So they needed a backup. And if you're talking about a backup that can step in, especially with some of the pieces they have, and if Tua gets hurt again, which people tend to expect at this point, I like the pickup a lot. I mean, truthfully, it's probably more of a B just because I don't understand it on Teddy Bridgewater's basis. But from a standpoint of what they're doing and to have some confidence at the backup, I like it.
What about you, Lou?
I mean, I would give it a solid A, only because this is a league where we've seen how many times do you see a starter start all 17 games? You figure at least one game a season, you're going to need your backup to play. And I mean, if you were going to rank the backups in the NFL, Teddy's got to be in the top 2 or 3, I would imagine. A guy with as many starts under his belt, with many wins as a starter under his belt. Let's we not forget that maybe it's only because it's my team, the Philadelphia Eagles won a Super Bowl with a backup quarterback, but a competent veteran backup quarterback.
True.
Many years ago, the New York Giants won a Super Bowl with Jeff Hostetler until Sims got hurt. So, I don't think you can ever discount if they got Teddy at a good number and they had the cap space to make it work. I mean, I think it's a solid A of a pickup.
So with both of you guys giving this move a high mark, I found it a little interesting last week when there was discussion, of course, about Tyreek Hill moving over to Miami. There was discussion about Teddy Bridgewater and his role in Miami. And it was said that when asked about what his role was, or if the coaching staff talked to him about what his role was and whether or not he would be the starter, he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, I choose not to speak on that. So do you think that has any weight over there, Coach?
No. McDaniel, in fact, came out, was it yesterday or today, and said Tua is our starter. There's no question. Okay. So I don't think it weighs anything there. And I just think Bridgewater didn't want to discuss it. But I'm pretty sure they brought him in and told him right away you're the number 2. Because McDaniel, from give or take whatever you want, from the beginning that he's been in Miami, he has said Tua is our quarterback, and that's what put the Watson thing to rest. That's what put everything else to rest. So no, I don't think there was anything to that.
Okay, Lou, you got anything to add to that?
No.
Oh, okay. All right, moving on to the next team, and I got a strange feeling I already know what your grade is on this, but I'll go ahead and ask anyway. Jacoby Brissett to the Cleveland Browns. Because that's the big move they made at quarterback, right?
It's a huge run they made.
All right, let's be real. Of course, the big move to the Cleveland Browns is, of course, the big signing, or the signing trade for one Deshaun Watson. What is that grade that you give them, starting with you, Lou?
Yeah, I'm sure I'm gonna, show my opinions here as C+. Like, ooh. I mean, I realize, like, everybody, remembers this guy who, put up big numbers for a Houston team that never won any games.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, you already admitted the fact that you're probably not going to have him from somewhere from 4 to 8 games this coming season. You've mortgaged your entire future draft pick wise and cap space wise. Let's say he is, as good as Aaron Rodgers, or, a combination of Aaron Rodgers and Randall Cunningham all rolled into one package. I mean, and literally, unless you win a Super Bowl, you've given up too much and you've cost your team too much. Not to mention the moral high ground, which you have completely ceded in, Yeah, I mean, it's just, it seems like the way the NFL is structured with salary cap these days, for a guy who I still don't think is completely proven, he's proven he can put up big numbers on a loser. I mean, I know he won a lot of games in college, but people of questionable moral character sometimes, don't often turn into winners. But we'll see.
Okay.
I don't give it a great grade. I think you've mortgaged way too much to make it happen.
And you said you gave it a C- or C+?
C plus.
C+? Okay.
Maybe a B minus at best.
So I'll go ahead and I'll round up since you gave that option there. I'll give it a B-. Okay, Coach.
I tell you what, I struggled to give this either a C- or a D+.
Nice.
I went C-, but here's the thing, D. I actually listened to you. You told us that we should have some sort of system. Try to have a system and think about it beforehand.
Some sort of criteria.
But so I have the criteria, and I'm trying to scribble it down as we're going through. My criteria, you have the need desperation factor. I had that down at a D. I don't think Cleveland's biggest need overall was the fact that they needed Watson. There were other teams that seemed to have need him. They at least competed with Baker, who now is in limbo, and there's rumors that they may somehow try to keep him for if Watson is not able to play for a bit of this season. But so I had that at a D. How close to a Super Bowl run for the team was one of the things, especially when it came to the bigger time quarterbacks. I had that at a C because I don't think anybody knows where the Browns are right now. And does this really help them get to the next level? Who knows? The next part is the cap hit, or cap hit plus what's given up, as in a trade, which I have that in an F, because holy crap. I mean, there's not a team that gave up more than they did. And obviously the cap space was enormous, especially when you already had a quarterback you were trying to hold on to originally. But the picks they gave to Houston and everything else they gave up just to get that, I mean, it's huge. QB age, I actually gave that an A because Watson's a young guy. He's 26. So obviously that's a solid place to get your future starter. QB past performance, I actually gave him a B+ on it because of what we saw in Houston. That was all of it. I kind of take the overall and average it out. But yeah, I have it a C-. I just think there was just way too much given up from a team that at points people thought they were close. And now I feel like, truthfully, what probably caused this more than anything was how Joe Burrow has played. And Cleveland is like, holy crap, we need that right now or we're done. And so they tried to just sell everything to try to get that.
Well, I find that interesting because there's been a lot of criticism, primarily coming from that front office on Baker Mayfield, and they felt as though that they wanted to move away from him, and they showed us that they did, or they're in the process of doing so. So you don't think that was potentially a need? I mean, I understand that Baker has played well in times, but you don't think that they felt as though it was at least a good enough move to move on, or at least upgrade to that position?
A front office is going to do what a front office wants to do, and that's plain and simple. But if I'm looking at it from the fact of an overall team, and a team that with a few more pieces in better places could have competed even better. I mean, obviously they had a solid running game when both backs were healthy with Hunt and Chubb. The line was better at run blocking than pass blocking, so that didn't help Baker at all. Because he overthrew a bunch, but shoot, when you're trying to throw deep balls and you don't have time, that's going to happen. I mean, fine, you want to move on from him, but this is a guy you drafted in the first round, high, number 1 overall. So, I mean, that's on you, man. That's on you.
All right, moving on to the next team on my list. And
that was excellent, by the way, Coach. Much better job than me.
Thanks.
But I think we were on the same page with the what you gave up and what you did in the cap. I think that's the only thing I really used for my criteria.
Yeah,
so partly I've used, like, I was thinking about the two things I did when DS thinking of the criteria. I was like, what you cost you in terms of both, if it cost you a trade and or cost you money, and then I thought was how close it got you to the Super Bowl.
Oh, okay.
And both those things I think I mean, obviously, Coach hit it right on the head with the F for what they gave up, both in terms of money and draft capital. And then, I don't know how close it gets them to the Super Bowl.
It's going to be very interesting to see exactly how they maneuver around that cap in later years, especially when he starts to become more of a cap hit. They keep talking about, of course, how the cap was going to continue to increase in the next few years, but will it be enough room for them to go ahead and if not, keep the talent that they currently have, potentially sign on better talent as to move on and take the other teams within that division. So it's going to be very interesting to see what the future holds for the Cleveland Browns. Moving on to the next team, the Denver Broncos, and their big signee, Josh Johnson. Okay, stop playing. Well, I'm talking about Russell Wilson. So starting with you, Coach, your grade on the Denver Broncos and their move with their brand new shiny QB and Russell Wilson.
I see. Now I have to do my little math here real quick. I don't think that was too bad. Sorry, it'll just take me 2 seconds here. I'm going to give it about, I don't know, I'm going to go about a B+.
Okay.
Overall, I like it. I think obviously the desperation with Denver was obviously there. They needed to go big or go home overall. So that we knew from the beginning, and not to mention when we talked about this weeks ago, we brought up the fact that it's Denver's kind of thing to do. Go out and try to get a big-time veteran quarterback, and that's what they did. What brought it down to me a little bit was I don't think Denver's that close to a Super Bowl run, so I think that brings it down a little. And the quarterback age variation of it, I think especially with the running and all that stuff under his belt that Wilson's had, I actually brought that down to a C. But then again, with his past performance, I had an A. I kind of feel like the whole cap hit stuff's only around a B to B plus possibly. Like I don't think they went outside the box of what they thought they were going to do. So no, overall I like the move, and I think a solid B plus there for getting Russell.
Okay, Lou.
No, I kind of think this one's a little closer to. Yeah, I'd give it a B because again, I don't think they didn't have to re-sign Russ, but Russ comes with a pretty hefty salary.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely cost them some capital, not as much draft as it cost them pieces on their own team.
Mm-hmm.
Lest we forget they gave up a guy who could be a Pro Bowl level tight end. And I mean the question is just I do think this. I mean, in my opinion, this gets them closer to a play. I mean, they haven't even been in the playoffs recently. This gets them further down the road than probably maybe Cleveland may be down the road. I think B is a good solid move here. I mean, it puts them, especially in the division that they're in. Like, I mean, you're in like a 80s style Russia-U.S. arms race here in that AFC West with, Kansas City drafted into this, the Chargers drafted into this, and Derek Carr's a good. I mean, they also that was a draft pick, right?
A draft pick, yeah.
The Raiders all those years ago. So yeah, 3 teams that were lucky enough to draft into it. Now, granted, Carr's had to get paid, Mahomes has had to get paid. The Chargers are lucky enough right now; they're under a rookie deal, so they're gonna have to make hay while the sun shines. Yeah, I give it a solid B, even closer to B plus.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and I'll round up on that one too. Both of you guys gave them the Broncos a B plus on that. So the next team, God, this is the most ballyhooed quarterback pick. Signing during the entire offseason. Will he? Won't he? And it looks like he did, even though he lost his buddy, who turned out not to be his buddy. And that's the Green Bay Packers and one Aaron Rodgers. Lou, your grade for AA Rod.
F. Sorry. All right. Well, I mean, again, certainly in terms of coaches, people that are so, dumbstruck that with both Kansas City and the Packers, letting guys like Tyreek go,
Mm-hmm.
As we mentioned last week here, I realize math is hard, and algebra is even harder, but like, everybody's got X amount of money, and when, your quarterback is Y and you times 50 times Y, and everybody else in the team's got to be made up of Z, or, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, all of those letters got to be added up to equal the rest of the team. You only got so much to pass around when, the quarterback is times 50 million, takes up such a percentage of your team. So, they had to make Aaron happy. They got to win now. They've backed themselves into such a corner that, this is a win now team, and the only way they're going to win now is to sign Aaron. Because the other problem is, they don't suck. They're not going to be one of the top 5 teams in the draft. Like, the way we've seen this go, I mean, unless you pull, a rabbit out of the city moves up to the 10th spot to get Mahomes. Mm-hmm. I don't know if the Patriots got a superstar quarterback, but they got a starting quarterback for several years in the 15th spot. Packers, the problem is you win all those games, you pick 27th every year. They moved up and got Jordan Love, but he certainly doesn't look like the answer. I don't know. It's probably given the situation they were in, it's probably a B minus, but you gave up so much money, and like he, because of his ego and whatever it else is, he needed to have that money, and certainly never learned a lesson from Tom Brady in that, maybe if you're the 8th best, highest paid quarterback, you can actually pay everybody else on the team and win championships. But no, Aaron, you become the number 1 or number 2 highest paid quarterback, and you'll keep losing NFC championship games. Good for you. And that's going to be your legacy. And you can say all you want about, well, it's not his. Then I'm going to have all the apologists tell me how it's not his fault because it's the team around his fault. But well, it's your fault that you're taking up all the salary cap space.
Agree. But what Lou is about to learn later on tonight, or maybe sometime tomorrow, is that math isn't hard for one Big Papa Pump, Scott Steiner. With that said, Coach, your Green Bay Packers grade on re-signing one Aaron Rodgers.
I feel like we have to chisel more spots into Lou's Mount hate more. I'm going to go with a solid C+.
Okay.
And because this one's all over the place when it comes to the way I'm looking at it. Because if you talk about the need, desperation part of it, I feel like it's an A. Obviously, like Lou had mentioned, if this team's going to win now, it's got to be with Aaron Rodgers. And if this team's going to have a shot, it's going to be with Aaron Rodgers. Does it hurt that he doesn't have his top target? Sure. But we've seen him do it when Adams was hurt, too. Like, obviously, just Rodgers is that good of a quarterback. But so need desperation-wise, I gave it an A. I also gave it an A on the QB pass performance. Obviously, right now, as quarterbacks go, again, you're talking about double MVP as of late, and it doesn't get much better than that. So those 2 A's are right there. When you get to the cap hit plus what's given up, I actually gave that an F, only because of what then they had to give up just to make sure they were able to keep Aaron, and how they're going to have to restructure deals and whatnot just to keep some of that team around long enough to make a Super Bowl run. That being said, close to Super Bowl run, still gave it a B. I mean, you're losing championship games. That's still closer than 28 other teams. So
or division round games.
Or division.
Jimmy Garoppolo, who doesn't have a job.
All right, so what? More than 22 other teams? 24 other teams? Regardless, I have them at B because, especially with him, I think that has that Super Bowl run. But then QB age also brought it down. I had that at a D because obviously Aaron's going to be 37 when the season starts. So overall, I give it a C+. It's all kind of just right in the middle there. Obviously, from Green Bay's point of view, and I said this preseason, they needed to get it done. If Green Bay is going to compete now and for the near future, they need Aaron Rodgers at the helm. They don't have another thing to go. Jordan Love is not the guy. But, yeah, so C+.
Okay. Next team on the list.
What was your overall grade, Coach? I heard
yeah, C+.
C+, okay. Thank you.
C+, yeah. Next on the list, the New Orleans Saints, who actually today signed one Andy Dalton. Potentially that's going to be the backup behind their earlier signee of this current off season. One Mr. W. Eater himself, Jameis Winston. So, Coach, we're going to go ahead and start with your fellow FSU alum, the grade for the New Orleans Saints here.
Yeah, again, I'm just looking over this all pretty quickly when it comes to my how I'm trying to rate these all along the same. I'm actually going to go B- here because it might be a little higher than some people think, but of course on the fact that the need desperation, New Orleans needed something. I didn't quite go A, but I give it a B+ along those lines. When it comes to the Super Bowl run, I have that at C-. I don't think the Saints are that close. Go ahead, prove me wrong, New Orleans. I know you've played well, so we'll see if you can do it without your old-time quarterback, without your old-time coach. But I had that down at a C-. The cap hit, I gave it an A. To bring him in for 2 years, the deal wasn't, crazy along the lines of someone who's nearly led the league, at least in passing yardage, and to be the starter. It wasn't a crazy number. Quarterback age, I had a B. He's still fairly youthful. His past performance I had as a C to C-, depending, because obviously we've seen him do good things, but we've seen him do just as many bad things. If you're talking C, just look at his touchdowns interception ratio. It's right along the C because it's about the same on each side. But yeah, I still give it a B- just because, of course, New Orleans need someone that can throw the ball deep, especially if they're going to convince Michael Thomas to stick around a while longer and be their guy. So, yeah, I thought they needed to do it, and that's what they did.
Okay. Coach gives them a B-. What about you, Lou?
Yeah, I'd probably just a smidge higher. I like the. I coach their. This is a team that's in a bit of a rebuild because I think they got, caught by surprise with Sean Payton leaving. I think it was a safe move. It's somebody who is, probably going to know whatever system they're going to try to continue with. I think Jameis is a solid starter. He's in that, 10 to 20 ranked range of starting quarterbacks in the NFL. He's a guy with the right pieces around him. If they still keep that elite defense in place, I don't feel like Alvin Kamara is really a elite running back. He gets a lot of his work because he works with the quarterback so well. I don't think they have an elite receiving core anymore. I personally don't expect Michael Thomas really ever to come back and be the Michael Thomas we knew. But they, I think it was a good, smart move, especially the way the landscape was starting to play out. They, of course, made a big push to get Deshaun Watson. Mm-hmm. And when that didn't happen, I think this was the best move they could make at the time. So, I'm not writing them all down like Coach is, but I'm piggybacking off his criteria, and I think it's a solid B move.
Okay.
Oh, did Lou just give me a compliment? Wow, that's rough.
I give you a lot of compliments on this one, Coach.
So, Lou, since you gave the Saints a B with their move, how about their fellow not Coach, I'm sorry, Lou. Since you gave the Saints a B with their QB signing, what about their fellow NFC South division rival, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, with the retired, unretired Tom Brady?
Is there something above A+?
Maybe an A+.
Well, I don't. They didn't really do anything. He was already under contract. He just unretired. He just said, "Oh, never. Whatever I said a month ago, never mind." So, I feel like this is what do you get when you don't go to class? Incomplete.
Yeah.
This is like an incomplete or an NA, not applicable. I don't know how a grade is applicable here because they didn't really do anything, and Tom didn't really do anything. Like they were lucky enough they didn't have to put their toe into this pool, this cesspool that is the quarterback carousel. So they got kind of an incomplete because they didn't have to take the test.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? They got lucky they didn't have to take the test.
So
they were able to hold on to their Hall of Famer. But I do feel like there still is no what's it called? Oh, succession plan in they got there's nobody in that quarterback room they can step. Kyle Trask was like a 5th round pick.
Something like that, yeah.
Is he really the number one backup this coming year, or they got somebody else there?
As far as I know of, I think he's the number one backup there.
And that's troublesome to me. So from that standpoint, like there are, I mean, I don't know if they're going to go out and sign one of these other guys, like that's floating around, these, career backups that are floating around still. But in some ways, I feel like they got an incomplete because they didn't have to play the game.
Okay, so Coach, do you feel the same way?
I just like the incomplete aspect of it. I'm going to rate it in kindergarten terms, where you get needs improvement, satisfactory, very satisfactory, or excellent. They can have an excellent. Like, if we have to rate this, it's hard to rate anything below. Yeah, I mean, I don't like the guy, but you talk about the need desperation, that's an A+. Close to a Super Bowl run, that's an A+. Cap hit, it's an A- because he's not taking a ton of money. QB age is the only place where I have an F, but then the QB past performance is A+. If you have to rate it, obviously it's going to be an A or an E if you're going like that. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Okay, so moving on to the next team. Not necessarily, you know what? I don't even know if I necessarily want to add this into the carousel spot. It was just because of the discussion of whether or not they were going to lose a guy or the guy who was currently their starter or not. And that is the San Francisco 49ers. So I don't necessarily want your grade on this. My question is, well, you know what? I'll save that for later. I'll skip over the Niners for a little bit later. We'll move on to the next team.
That's kind of an incomplete too, and that's an incomplete because they haven't made a decision yet.
D, I got you a grade for San Francisco, and it's 3 letters.
Okay.
WTF.
Well, we'll talk about that WTF in a little bit later.
Not to extend the conversation, but they've been caught with their pants down, I think. Like Jimmy had surgery, which I think has made the market for him soft.
Yeah.
And so much has happened so quickly with all these other guys. Like, I don't think everybody knew that Russ was going to get traded. I don't think everybody knew that the situation with Watson was going to be resolved legally, and then the market was going to be resolved within days. He was going to make a decision, and it kind of has caught them by surprise. And now there's no place for Jimmy to land other than sending him in their own division up to Seattle.
True, and we'll actually discuss that in just a moment. So the next team on my list, well, actually, since we kind of touched on them already, why don't we go ahead and talk about it? Since they ended up, I guess, resolving their quarterback situation via trade with the Seattle Seahawks with Drew Lock. What are your thoughts on that move, Lou? And do you think that they actually end up addressing a potential need if you believe that they have one, either with another trade to pick up someone else, or do you think they go ahead and address that need with the number 9 spot?
Well, yeah, I mean, my opinion is they have a huge need, and that they definitely need to address it. I mean, nothing against Drew Lock, but he hasn't proven anything, and I don't know how many NFL starts he has. My thought is it's probably somewhere between 6 and 9 that he's had in his career, and they haven't been good. So, I mean, who knows? I mean, Pete Carroll has a lot of confidence in his own ability to coach up quarterbacks. But it is something that needs to be addressed. If that was their only move, that's down in the D range. The only thing they get an A on is it cost them a lot too. I mean, it cost them their all-pro starting quarterback.
Yeah.
And they probably got out from underneath a lot of salary, but still, it cost them their all-pro starting quarterback. They did get some, nice pieces in place for the next guy, but I can't imagine Drew Lock is the next guy to lead them. This is another arms race. You're in a division with Matthew Stafford and the Super Bowl champions, Kyler Murray and the up-and-coming Cardinals. And, San Francisco made the NFC Championship game, even though their quarterback situation might be a mess. The rest of that team looks really, really good.
So you believe that they're going to have to make another move. Which direction do you think do they go? Do you think they attempt to go after one of these other quarterbacks that are currently out there, or do you think they pull the trigger at the number 9 spot?
I kind of think they're leaning towards the draft. I would be surprised if we see Jimmy G move before the draft, and or Baker move before the draft, and or guys like, who else is left out there? Like Cam's floating around out there.
Yeah.
Is Ryan Fitzpatrick still floating around out there? But he could.
Fitzpatrick is still technically out there, yeah.
He could up and retire for all we know. Yeah, I don't know. I think they're going to go draft. Would be my guess, but it's purely a guess.
Okay. And what about you, Coach?
The draft or the grade? I mean, I don't know.
I mean, if you have a grade, I'll take it. But if you think they're going to go draft or free agency, I'd like to know that too.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel along those lines. I feel like this is incomplete at the moment. Because if this is where they're ending, I'm giving it like a D+. There's too much bad there. I don't think they're close to a Super Bowl run. Obviously, he hasn't shown much with his past performance. What they gave up in their longtime star quarterback, and the need desperation I don't feel was really there to get Drew Lock either. So I think overall that move doesn't surprise me, but I think especially at 9 overall, I absolutely think they're going to go with the draft and draft one of the top 2 quarterbacks. I just think the only question you have to have right now is Pittsburgh going to make a move to make sure that they can get whoever it is that they actually want. But, yeah, I think it's incomplete right now because if it's not, Seattle's in for a rough season.
Okay. And it's interesting that you bring up the Steelers, Coach, because that is the next team on my list. They currently have the 20th spot, but they did go out and make a signing. They gave an extension to one Dwayne Haskins, but they did go out and they signed Mitch Trubisky. So, Coach, your grade on the Biscuit going up to Steeltown?
That's a tough one because, again, I feel like overall their QB situation right now is incomplete. Let me just see this real quick. Actually, I'll have that a little higher. I mean, I guess Trubisky, as much as I hate to just say a C grade because it's always that middle, kind of feel like it's right there just because while he's shown to be decent at times, he's had more bad than good. I don't quite understand that being the main signing for the Steelers unless they are going draft, which I 100% believe they're going draft. I believe this team's closer to a Super Bowl run than we think, which is why Trubisky didn't make as much sense to me. Like I feel like this defense is Super Bowl caliber, and the offense just needs to be able to score enough points to make that happen. I don't know if Trubisky's the guy for that. I gave him a good grade with the cap hit because, they lost Ben, but he just retired. It's not like they gave him up. So they didn't have to pay a ton. They didn't lose much. And his age is kind of in the middle, but I don't know. I think it's just a straight C. There's too much to be so unsure of and ho-hum about in Trubisky being the Steelers quarterback right now.
Okay. Lou?
Yeah, I'll C sounds about right, mostly because I don't trust Mitchell Trubisky, but I kind of feel like they're tanking a little bit, which is an amazing thing to say. Mike Tomlin's been there 15 years and he's never had a losing season, and I would almost bet my house on the fact that they're going to have a losing season. But I think you'd almost pencil them in for last place in this coming season, and on August 22nd when we do our NFC or North Division. I'm just picking a date out there. I have no idea when we're doing our North. It's probably actually already on Coach's calendar. I could look it up. Because I agree, Coach, that they're going to go through the draft, but I agree that they're targeting the 2023 NFL draft. I think by picking up Trubisky, they're going to give him a shot. They're going to see what he's got in him. Maybe they'll find magic in a bottle here. But I don't think they're going any place. I don't think they're picking one of these guys. I could be wrong if everybody thinks this Malik Willis is, a star in the making, and maybe if he falls to them all the way at 20. They're picking like 20. Is that what they're picking? Mm-hmm. Maybe they pick Willis because he's the guy with the highest ceiling. But if he's not there, I don't think they go for this draft. I think they wait till next year.
Well, that's why Lou, that's why I said it'll be interesting to see if they try to move up, because a lot of people say they like Pickett a lot. Obviously, he went to Pitt also. But
I'd be shocked if they go for Pickett, but maybe I'm wrong. I feel like Pickett's
I kind of feel like Trubisky's going to be your week 1 starter. Willis or Pickett.
Oh, absolutely.
Willis or Pickett will be your week 9 starter.
Well, speaking of starters, looks like the Colts, they have a new starter by trading for one Matt Ryan. So, Coach, your thoughts on Matty Ice going to the Colts?
See, now that's an interesting one, because I didn't quite understand. I mean, I know Wentz didn't light up the world last year, but I didn't quite understand them. I didn't quite understand the move of just getting rid of him and then going out and get Matty Ice. But no, overall, you know what? I'm still going to give it like a B-. Again, because I think Colts are one of those teams that has a lot of pieces in place. Obviously, one of the most dynamic running backs in the entire league. They have a really good defense. People have just said in the past that they were a quarterback away. So you want to talk need desperation. I left that at a B only because the need part where I feel like Wentz is gone. Wentz was younger. I don't know if Ryan's going to quite be I think he'll be a little bit better than Wentz numbers-wise, but he's not mobile enough to be what Wentz was, so we'll see how that goes. Again, close to the Super Bowl run was like a B+. The cap hit, B, because I don't feel like they went nuts. QB age was the one place when I gave it like an F because you're bringing in an old guy to be your starter now for what they're hoping at least for a couple of years. The past performance I give a B because, yeah, he's had some off and ons. Obviously, he's a past MVP, but he's kind of far from that, Matty Ice, though still solid. So, I mean, I think right about a B- just because the Colts needed it. They needed somebody that could be at the helm to at least keep that offense moving when they're not running the ball. And, I mean, anybody could hand off 30 times a game, but I'll still give it a B- just because at least I feel like it's a little bit of an upgrade from where they were.
Okay, so Coach gives it an above average grade. What about you, Lou?
Yeah, I mean they didn't give up they gave up hardly anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They give like a 5th round pick or something. So that from that standpoint, they do have to pick up Matty's contract, which is hefty. They're in win now mode. And obviously he's 38 years old, right, Coach?
Yes.
So like this is, he's got a year or two left. They don't have a succession plan in place. It'll be interesting, and maybe they're just waiting for better quarterbacks to come down the pipe in the draft. But they are set to win. Like when we thought Brady was retired, we said Tampa, Pittsburgh, and Indy were the 3 places where you'd think a quarterback would want to go to win.
Mm-hmm.
We thought like a Jimmy G or a Watson would pick. Certainly did not think Cleveland was the place he was going to pick. But we also didn't know if somebody was going to offer him $230 million and let him basically write off next year's suspended contract. So I'd say this is a solid B+. Maybe even an A- move from the Colts standpoint, because they're in win now mode, and like Coach said, they could be a quarterback. I mean, look what the Rams did with Stafford. If you look at if this is a copycat league and you look at what the Rams did with a aging Matt Stafford who could never get over the hump. I mean, he couldn't get the playoffs, but obviously Matty's got to the promised land. He was, a few minutes away from winning a Super Bowl. So if you're copying what you saw last season, this I think is an A- move.
Okay. Now, Coach, since we, Lou, since we already touched on the fact that, we talked about Matty Ice and where he came from, let's talk about the Falcons. With their signing of one Marcus Mariota. They currently have the number 8 spot. What do you think about the pickup of Mariota? And also, do you think that they go ahead and potentially go their QB of the future at the 8 spot as well? Or do you think they stick with Mariota and try to figure this thing out come 2023?
I'm up first this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think exactly what we said. I think this is a very similar situation to Pittsburgh. I would somewhat put Mariota as just a little bit older version of Mitch Trubisky, a guy that was picked in the top 3 in the draft, did not make it work with the team that he started with. was pretty much, I mean, you can use the word failure for the team that drafted him. Became a backup someplace else. It's a very similar situation, except the difference in Pittsburgh is Pittsburgh has lots of pieces in place to win as soon as they get somebody behind the center that can, make things work. Atlanta is way further away than that. Atlanta needs lots of pieces, which I think it would be a waste to waste the number 8 pick on the quarterback talent that is in this draft. My suggestion to them is not to pick a quarterback. Again, mostly because they're picking 8, they have much better draft capital than Pittsburgh at 20. You can get a much better player. You can get a, game changer on defense. You could get a shutdown quarter or a pass rushing defensive lineman. I mean, these are what are the positions? You need a quarterback. You need a left tackle that can protect your quarterback. You need a pass rushing defensive lineman, and you need a shutdown corner. Those are the 4 key positions everybody needs. They could get one of those other 3 positions, number 8. A guy that could start for 10 years. Pittsburgh's less likely to find that at 20. They can get lucky and find that at 20, but I think they should definitely wait until next year, see what Mariota can do. I would have a backup plan. I don't know who their number 2 is, but they should go out and sign a guy like they should have looked for a guy like Teddy Bridgewater, but they should go out and sign another quarterback or an Andy Dalton to be Mariota's backup, because that could go bad fast, unless as Cordarrelle Patterson joked, he's going to end up playing quarterback.
Well, I
don't give it a high grade. Again, like Trubisky, I'd give it a C, because you're not going to win. If the point in this league is to win now, they ain't winning now. They got out from underneath Matty's contract. That probably helped. Maybe they can sign some other free agents, but I haven't seen him really do any moves in free agency.
Yeah, I haven't seen him do a ton of moves.
I think they were so buried under the cap that it didn't matter. Maybe that's for the cap for years down the road.
Almost. Well, that's if they make good decisions enough to even make that feasible. But to answer your question, their backups are AJ McCarron and Josh Rosen
and Felipe Franks.
Yeah, well, that's a mess.
Wow.
Yeah, that's nothing but a mess.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Most definitely. So, what do you think, Coach?
Again, if they're done, I'm saying a D.
Okay.
I mean, again, yeah, you go to the Super Bowl run thing, I have it at an F, because I don't think this team's anywhere near it. Actually, on what given up, I kind of feel a little worse on the end than what Lou said. I kind of feel like, I don't know. It feels like Matt Ryan probably should have been a Falcon for life at that point, and you gave up your longtime franchise quarterback for what? I mean, for nothing, and you got nothing for it, and all you have left is either young guys, unproven guys, or really not very good guys in your quarterback room. Age, again, a C, because he's out of the middle of the road. QB's past performance, I gave a D, because he's failed a number of times. So I just had it kind of as a D if that's where they start the season and they don't do anything in the draft. But I agree, they're probably looking there in the draft, but we'll see.
Okay. Since we kind of already touched on him, because this guy came from a team we just talked about not too long ago, and now seems to be the starter where he's moving to now, and that will be one Carson Wentz coming over to the Washington Commanders. Coach, your grade on the red-headed commander, or as I like to call him, Carson Commander.
And are you giving him the commander outfit from G.I. Joe too?
No, actually, I'm going to go ahead and dress him up like Boy George, because I already have a song set up. Carson, Commander. Don't make that throw. Don't make that throw. So, yeah. Sorry. It was there.
Well, actually, I see where my ratings are going with this, but I'm actually going to go a little lower than that. I'm going to go a C-. And I almost feel like I want to go lower than that even, only because I said you should be where Washington is right now. You should stick with Taylor Heineke. He wasn't spectacular, but he wasn't bad. So by bringing Wentz in, you're basically telling Heineke you're done. and just putting him as your quarterback. So need desperation. I mean, does Washington need a quarterback? Yes. They talked about that over and over. Is Wentz the guy? That's a whole different conversation. Close to the Super Bowl run, I have low because, Washington's not that close yet. QB age is also around the C because he's not old, but he's not, in his first few years either. Past performance, C+, only because was very good and then has fallen off, but we'll see. But yeah, I mean, I had a C- just because, I don't know, I kind of felt like it was the wrong move for Washington to begin with. But overall, it's not like they gave up a ton to have him.
Okay, Lou?
I'm going to give him a B-, and that's probably because I have a soft spot for Carson Wentz. But yeah, taking on that contract was probably not a good thing. They didn't give up much to get. I don't think they gave up much to get him. They gave up a lot less than Indy gave to the Eagles to get him. So from Indy's standpoint, it was a net loss in terms of draft picks. I feel like you're always in somewhat of a win now with Daniel Snyder. You got to do something. And there with a new team name and all the controversy swirling around this team, the fan base is so mad. They need to do something to win. Maybe they didn't feel like they were in a position to try to draft somebody with this draft class. People forget how good he was at one point in his career, early on in his career, and maybe it's in his head. Maybe it's injuries have diminished his skills. I think it's a little bit more the first than the second, but I give him a B- because I think he can be somewhat successful. He needs a good line in front of him, and he needs a good running game. But I mean, he's not elite by any stretch of any imagination. Could he be as good as like a Kirk Cousins? Maybe. Could he certainly be as good as a Joe Flacco in his prime? Yes. So I think he could definitely be in that 10 to 20 rank conversation.
Oh, okay.
I don't think he's in the 20. I mean, most people now are putting him in the 20 to 30 conversation. Whereas that 2017 season, he was, a top 3 quarterback in the league. So.
All right. So, in the word yes or no, do you think Washington, if Carson Wentz isn't the guy who's currently on their books for 2 years, unless they decide to drop him after next year, which it wouldn't be a cap hit on him in 2023 if they decide to do so, do you think they go QB at number 11? Yes or no?
No, not now.
Okay. All right. Final team on this quarterback carousel, not necessarily at the starter spot, but at the backup spot, because there has been a little discussion of whether or not this dude is going to end up finishing the season as the starter there. And what Lou likes to point out is in New Jersey, and that would be Tyrod Taylor with the New York Giants. Lou.
Yeah, there's a lot like the first ones you gave us. It's a solid backup for a quarterback who hasn't been able to stay healthy, who's probably on a short leash. I mean, if it doesn't work out this year for Daniel Jones, they're definitely going to go look in the draft next year. So yeah, I think this is a solid B+ because that's a team that really needs a good backup because of his health issues he's shown over the years. So, and Tyrod's, a good backup. So, I think never bad to sign a good backup for not a lot of money.
Okay.
So B+.
And you, Coach?
A VS. A very satisfactory. I don't know. If I was rating it, it's somewhere in the vicinity of a C+, B-. I mean, a lot of talk was, are they going to replace Daniel? And obviously they didn't replace him, but Tyrod Taylor's been on 2/3 of the teams in the NFL now and has started for half of those. So, I mean, obviously he has some veteran attitude to him and can play if need be. So there's nothing wrong with the move, but I hope it's not their plan for him to actually take over or something.
Okay, so the last 4 teams that we didn't discuss, I want to go ahead and make this quick. You guys say either they stick with what they got, they make a trade, or they draft for these next 4 teams. And you can just name the team and say which one of the three options. Matter of fact, no, we'll go team by team. Again, real quick, current starter in Carolina, Sam Donald, a team that was in conversations, of course, with Deshaun Watson. Starting with you, Lou. Draft, stay, or trade?
They're idiots. They draft, and they're going to draft a guy that's not worth drafting.
Okay, Coach?
They're screwed. Can I just say that? No. Yeah, I mean, I agree with Lou. I guess they draft because they fell out of every other lottery.
All right. Well, they are at the 5th spot, so they are at the prime spot to go ahead and draft a QB. Starting with you, Coach. Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia, another team that was a little bit in that Deshaun Watson conversation. Draft, trade, or stay?
I never understood that to begin with. Stay. I think he's good. He's still young, developing. I think he's the guy for now.
Okay, Lou?
Agreed. They stay for now.
All right. Another team that actually got rid of a QB, but they've actually had pretty promising comments about him here in Houston. That would be Davis Mills. Lou, draft, trade, or stay?
They stay for now.
Okay. Coach?
Yeah, stay for now. I don't think they have a choice.
Okay. Last person on this list, last team on this list in terms of blue seats is a guy who's been up for discussion because of some of the stuff he's done on social media in terms of wiping his entire account clean of of mentions of the current team that he's currently with, and that would be Kyler Murray in Arizona. Coach,
the part you missed is he's put the stuff back on his his Twitter feed.
Okay.
So yeah, they're staying. They'd be stupid not to.
Lou?
Yeah, I agree with Coach. They're going to stay. And I think it was negotiation / temper tantrum.
Okay, and last two guys that I want to go ahead and bring up real quick. Do they stay home or do they go someplace else? Jimmy G and Baker Mayfield. Home or go? Lou?
I think Baker's got to. I think Baker wants to go. Any idea that he's going to stick around and be the starter during Deshaun's suspension, I don't think he's going to agree to it. I guess there's some fantasy that if, say this gets announced in the next month that he's out 8 games and there's no trade market for him, that they're like, well, you got to try out for 8 games and prove to the rest of the league that you're worth trading for. Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess that's a possible scenario that he feels like they convince him that he's got to have an 8-game tryout to make it worth somebody's while, because it seems to be the problem now is that he costs too much. Nobody wants to trade for him as a backup under his salary. But that's the biggest mystery. So I say he gets traded, but I don't know how.
Okay. Coach?
Kind of feel the same. I feel like Baker's got to be on his way out. But, with all the uncertainty and stuff, I say somehow Jimmy G stays put, and he's still with San Francisco this season.
Okay. Oh, yeah, you didn't answer about Jimmy. Stay or go?
You know what? I think at this point he's going to stay.
Okay. All right. Well, that's it, fellas. That was the hot seat for this the second part of the 2022 NFL quarterback carousel. Has been very interesting so far. I'm kind of intrigued to see exactly how this thing completely pans out, especially after the draft. I'm intrigued to see exactly how these quarterbacks pan out in the draft and whether or not these top 15 teams make a stab at one of these QBs that everyone tends not to like.
So the only thing I forgot, fellas, is, of course, we never did our 10 picks, and I just kind of skipped over it before. I don't know why. To speed up a little bit, I'm not going to go pick by pick from last week, just so you know. Lou won. He had 7 correct. I had 5 correct. DNash had 3 correct. So that's how that week went. We did go 1 and 1 in our unanimous picks. We had the Stanford versus Maryland game correct, but we got but we all picked the Bucks, who got destroyed by Memphis in that matchup.
Without John, no less.
Right. And Lou also had the tiebreaker. He had Chase Elliott, who finished 4th. And I had Tyler Reddick, who I picked as the upset, and he actually finished 5th, so not too bad. But
very good.
We are 68.2% on our unanimous picks, and now D and I are tied at 9 points apiece. Lou has 6. And also, as we're going into our picks, just so you know, interesting fact: the Lakers lost tonight to Dallas, and right now they're on the outside looking in of the what's it called? The play-in.
Playoffs, the play-in games.
The play-in, yeah. So they're even outside looking in of that right now, which is just crazy. But all right.
Not really. They've looked pretty bad this year. Yeah.
Here we go. So we're starting off, like I said before, with the Final Four matchup. Number 8, North Carolina number 8 seed, the number 2 seed, Duke Blue Devils. Saturday, 8:49 p.m. at Caesars Superdome in New Orleans, Louisiana. And Lou, you get to go first.
Oh, I kind of alluded to this before. I know everybody thinks I'm taking Carolina because I hate Duke, but this has been preordained by the CBS/NCAA gods. He has to win his last, championship. So,
D.
Plus, I'm kind of hoping we're unanimous, so we jinx him.
Oh man. With that said, my soul won't allow me to take Carolina. In best rivalry in the state of North Carolina, so I'm going Duke.
It was No,
Dukes.
Nobody that time.
All right. It was the Dukes.
Yeah. I'm rolling with Duke too for the same reason. So we'll see if we curse them or not. But hey, so far this year we're 68.2% correct. So maybe that'll go Duke's way. So D, we're starting with the women's Final Four here. You got the 1-seeded South Carolina Gamecocks taking on the 1-seeded Louisville Cardinals. Friday, 7 p.m. at the Target Center in Minneapolis.
Well, to quote Big Papa Pump, if you take that 68% and you add it to my 72%, then you go ahead and you get you 145%, which leads me to taking Louisville.
Yeah, that made sense. I don't know. The Gamecocks have been a force to be reckoned with. Obviously, this is the 1-versus-1. Should be a great matchup. But I'll go ahead and leave it wide open for Lou, and I'm going to take South Carolina.
I think we're gonna leave D on another island here. We got on island a lot last week.
Yeah, I know, right? And we saw how that worked out.
Heard him last week. So. Yeah. All right, so the next matchup, the third pick, is the number 1 Stanford Cardinal versus the number 2 UConn Huskies. Friday, 9:30 at the Target Center as well in Minneapolis after the other game. Look, I mean, Geno is tough to beat at this time of the year, and it's proving straight once again. I think UConn continues their run. This team's just playing so freaking well right now. I think they knock off number 1 Stanford and move on to take on, I think they move on to take on South Carolina in probably a repeat matchup of what we've seen, probably 2 of the last 4 years or something. But give me UConn. Lou?
Yeah, I'm actually going with you, Coach. They seem to be on a heck of a run. So I'm going to go with the Huskies as well.
D?
What was the faction that Big Papa Pump was in when he was in the WCW? The Wolfpack. Oh, let me get that Stanford Cardinal. Holler if you hear me.
Holler if you hear me. All right, so the fourth pick, Lou, starts with you. Dallas Mavericks at the Cleveland Cavaliers, Wednesday, 7 p.m. at the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse.
I am going to go with the Mavericks.
D.
They keep hurting me when I pick against them.
Yeah, and I can't keep being a lone wolf here. I'm going to go ahead and take Dallas, too.
Well, you may not be a lone wolf, but we're going to try our luck for a second time here. Give me Dallas. So our fifth pick of the week, we got the Miami Heat versus the Boston Celtics in a very tight top of the Eastern Conference. In fact, until yesterday when the Heat won, the Celtics were actually the 1 seed. So that's going to be Wednesday night, 7:30 at TD Garden. DNash.
I'm going to go ahead and take – I was originally going to take the Heat, but I'm going to take Boston now.
I knew the Heat struggled a couple games there. I know they didn't play a great game, a great team that is in the Kings the other night, but they seemed to bounce back and get themselves right-footed. I'm gonna have them knock off the Celtics and get back in the right spot. Give me the Heat. Lou?
Thanks for leaving it open for me, boys. We'll leave Coach on an island this time.
It's a hot island. All right, yep. So our sixth pick here is the Minnesota Timberwolves at the Toronto Raptors. Again, a lot of placement here in playoffs, in the play-in, really. Wednesday, 7:30 at Scotiabank Arena. Should be a solid matchup overall. The T-Wolves have been playing really well of late. I'm actually going to have them go into Toronto and win. Give me the Timberwolves. Lou.
I'm going for the Raptors.
D.
Well, it looks like Lou's going to be on the island himself. Go ahead and take Minnesota.
All right, so our 7th pick goes back to Lou, and we are the Phoenix Suns traveling to the Memphis Grizzlies. Friday night, 8 p.m. at FedEx Forum.
I'm going to call the unanimous right now, Suns.
No, you're not, because I'm actually going to go with the Memphis Grizzlies.
Man, I like this matchup a lot. But, it seems to do well when we leave D on an island. So give me the Suns.
This week is going to be an Isle of Relevancy.
We shall see. So our 8th pick, D, you get to start off, and it's our pillow fight of the week with teams that are out of it, but technically the 14th seed in both. The Detroit Pistons at the Oklahoma City Thunder, Friday, 8 p.m. at the Paycom Center.
J-Twa.
You're rolling with the Pistons. Do I, for the third time, do I leave it wide open for Lou? Yeah, sure. Give me the Thunder at home. Lou?
Once again, I think we're leaving D on a lot of islands.
Uh-oh.
D's on
We
1,
saw how that worked last
2, 3. Well, that's only 4 islands, right, for D?
I think so.
You and I are on 1 island each, Coach.
Yep.
Yeah.
So then our 9th pick is the Brooklyn Nets at the Atlanta Hawks, 7:30 at the State Farm Arena. This one starts with me. The Nets struggling a bit more than I thought of late.
Mm-hmm.
But both teams are desperate just to keep themselves in this playoff. Last year we saw the Hawks make a run at the last minute at the end and actually play well in the playoffs as well. All right, give me Trey. I'll take the Hawks at home to surprise. So I kind of feel like no one else is going there. But Lou?
You are correct, Nets.
D?
Are they playing in New York?
No, they're playing in Atlanta.
I mean, I knew that. I just wanted to ask you guys because you know what that means. That means Kyrie's playing. So I'm taking.
No, he's playing everywhere now. They
he's playing everywhere. Oh, they dropped him. Ooh.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. But yeah, I'm taking the Nets.
All right, so our 10th pick, starting with Lou. I took a game from the NHL this week to the 3 seed in both conferences. Pittsburgh Penguins at the Minnesota Wild, Thursday, 8 p.m. at the Xcel Energy Center. Lou?
I can't pick the Penguins. I'm a Caps fan. Go Wild.
D?
I can't pick the Penguins either. Taking Minnesota.
All right, well, I guess I can pick the Penguins. Give me the Penguins. So then our tiebreaker, D, you get to pick first this time. We're going to NASCAR for one more week here for the Toyota Owners 400, Sunday 3:30 at the Richmond Raceway in Richmond, Virginia. And you are up, sir.
All right. Let me go ahead and take Mark Truex Jr. Or Martin Truex Jr., sorry.
You're good. Give me Denny Hamlin. Lou?
D took one of my guys. He's won like 3 weeks in a row for me. He hasn't won the race, but he's been a good guy for me. So I'm going with the Chase Elliott for like 3 weeks in a row here.
Okay.
There you go. Those are our 10 picks of the week. Now that we remember to do them. So anyways, as I said, next week we'll be back. Lou will have the hot seat next week. That means we're just a little over 2 weeks away, D, from the wrestling hot seat with Howie. Yeah, that's going to be fun. Are you going to be rolling down here for the wrestling hot seat night?
Just might be. Yeah.
Cool. I'll have to figure out where we're going to sit up then, but that's a whole different discussion. Anyways, thank you for listening and watching, everybody. Also, we'll be doing the MLB East next week, which once again our bread and butter, so bring it. Thank you for listening and watching. We always appreciate it. We are SLZE Sports, SLZE Sports.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at SLZE Sports every Tuesday 9 p.m. right here on Facebook Live. With that being said, D, I know everyone's excited for a certain Rhodes family member to be showing up hopefully at WrestleMania, but who I really hope surprises and comes back, and we'll see, is none other than Bailey. We want Bailey back. Thank you for listening and watching, everybody. Have a good night.